Minutes after 5. Select board meeting for today, January 29th. And our agenda looks like this. Call the meeting to order, which we are now. Meeting approval of meeting minutes from 2 prior meetings. Economic development, land use and master plan committee appointments. A contract approval for the replacement of a floor at the police station. Town clerk's request for a police detail for elections, a donation or a potential donation of land to the town known as Zero Hall Street. Excuse me. PFAS Phase 2 IMA agreement, FY25 budget review and discussions, special town meeting town meeting warrant for, that would start on March 20, that would be for March 26th. Board of Selectmen quarterly newsletter, town administrator's report, and items that we're not reasonably anticipating. So with that being said, if we could have a review of the meeting minutes for
the minutes for the 20th aren't quite ready, so if you could just do them now.
I
So
read
you
the
have-
January 9 minutes, they're fine, so.
You okay there?
Yeah.
Do you have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes from January 9th, 2024 select board meeting.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Moving on to economic development, land use and master plan committee appointments. And there are several names into these groups because these groups have assignments based on the specific charge. I don't think we have the charges ready yet, do we?
Yeah.
Are they included in here? Okay, so do we?
I think we have most of the folks here, but I think we can just appoint them.
I think so too.
And
Do you
I'm
want a
happy to
motion
read-
that?
Yeah, sure. I'll move to appoint,
Hold on a second.
We just had one person just about 30 minutes ago withdraw,
okay,
so Max McCormick from the land use committee. So we actually had 8 candidates for the land use committee, so it's 7 seats, so that makes for 7. So that makes
Okay.
for a full board.
all right, cool. I think most of you are here for this, so thank you for coming, which is always fun. So I'll move to appoint the following residents to the Economic Development Committee for terms to expire on June 30th, 2024. That should probably be 2025 though, right? Because that would be this coming June. Because it should be 1 year,
No, they'll,
No, she's.
just reappointed again, okay.
It's gotta go
All right.
out.
So move to appoint the following residents to the Economic Development Committee for terms to expire on June 30th, 2024. Kathleen Snizek, Nassim Torigny, John Gertison, Kate McNutt, Daniel Tully, and Jeff Rosen.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you. You'll probably get your marching orders from Jason for your first meeting and stuff like that, and maybe one of us will join that meeting to sort of see how it goes, so.
Yeah.
Second committee, I move to appoint the following residents to the Land Use Committee for terms to expire on June 30th, 2024. Henry Fontaine, Dave Tully III, Alan Cheney, Lisa Toll, Lucas Stern, Consuelo Walker, and Erica Flynn.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Same thing, Jason and probably one of us, so. Then we have another motion down here to appoint Miss Christina Andrioli to the Master Plan Implementation Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2024.
Second? Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank
Okay.
you.
Good, all right.
So
Thanks,
with that being said, for those who were here tonight that were just appointed to this, you do need to get sworn in with the clerk or the assistant town clerk. So you before you can sit in one of those meetings, you got to get sworn in, right? And then the second piece of this is there's a charge, right? And so that we have a defined path of what you're being asked to do. there's a charge that the town administrator is drafting that will kind of navigate you through that, right? And so, you know, we look forward to the net result of that. I mean, these groups, and the intent when we started this was that these groups would allow us to chart a course into the future and to take a look at things in a new, different, and more objective way, and to come up with, you know, suggestions and possible changes that need to be made. And so, you know, you sign on to these boards and committees, and, you know, someone's going to become a chair. You do need to have meeting minutes. Someone's got to be a script or scribe and keep meeting minutes. And they need to have regular meetings, and, you know, the chair needs to have the charge to set those meeting dates and to be sure that those folks that are coming to the meetings have sufficient time to plan on their calendar so that they come. The last thing we need to happen is to put these groups together and then not be able to make, half of them can't make the meetings because of this, that, or the other thing. And then we just, you know, just kind of circles the drain at that point. So,
These will need to be posted meetings.
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Subject to
Make
the
sure-
open meeting law, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
48 hours prior to the.
Yeah, you gotta
they
get
have to
that.
be posted with the town clerk.
All of that will be in the charge, so that it's like, the charge is gonna be like a roadmap, okay, do this, do that. So you'll have that, and,
Yeah, so initially I'll probably be helping to coordinate the meetings and the communication amongst the committees. And then hopefully you all will vote for a chair who can do that moving forward. But certainly the select board and town administrator's office will be there to support the work. And I think there's an interest in being involved in the work as well. So definitely use us as a resource. After this meeting, hopefully, I don't know, sometime this week, you'll get an email from us just letting you know that you gotta come in to get sworn in. And then I'll try to coordinate an initial meeting date of each group and get it going. But I think kind of important and exciting new work that we're embarking on, and I'm very much looking forward to working with everybody.
Bring your ideas. We could use it.
yeah, that is, and to Karen's point, that summarizes it. This thing's kind of a think tank.
Yeah.
If you know what that is from, right, this is kind of a think tank. We need some creativity and to look at things in a very different way.
Turn over every stone.
Yeah, that's pretty much about how I look at it. So, anybody with any questions? Anybody that's been appointed, got any questions or anything you want to talk about at this point? No? Well, thank you for signing up for it. We all appreciate it. We all do. All of us up here appreciate that involvement that you have elected to take on. So, thank you. Okay. That
There's a
being
lot on our
said-
agenda, so that's it for the appointment side of things. I always like to tell people, if you want to abandon ship.
Now's the time.
No.
I love that you want to stay too, but.
Forget
I
all
also
that,
respect
the door's
people's time.
getting locked. Katie, bar the door.
Yeah.
But all kidding aside, if you do need to,
Yeah.
we would understand that, but you're certainly welcome to stay. All right, next up on our agenda, police station floor replacement contract, which we just had here a minute ago.
Yeah, sure. So we issued an IFB to replace the police station floor. This is being funded through a special article that was approved at town meeting. The good news is the bid came in significantly lower than we were expecting. And so we did receive 5 bids. The lowest was this company, Capital Carpet and Flooring Specialists, which was almost half of the highest bid. So
Yeah.
it's wild how these can really fluctuate. But I think we put a not to exceed $23,000 in the contract, so it is significantly lower. Good things usually happen when we bid these contracts. So yeah, we've The chief has checked references. They have significant experience in the public sector. References checked out. I talked to the company. They're ready to go, so.
I worked with them in the past.
All right.
Oh, absolutely. So,
Okay.
and so I guess my only comment was, because I'm always worried about stuff, right? No issue with the asbestos, right?
No,
Was that asbestos mitigated when Downs was the police chief?
I was there when we replaced the toilet before. I don't remember there being asbestos then. Was that the fire station that they had asbestos? No.
The fire station has asbestos, it's still there.
No, because I don't remember any litigation. I worked during the days when they were doing the floor, and there was no, that I remember. And
The only thing Eric, the only thing I remember about it, Harold was with us on FinCom at the same time, was that they didn't know the existing floor tiles and the mastic was hot, asbestos hot. And so the company that did it sent the mastic and the tile out and it came back hot. And Chief Downs had the floor covered over with a Luan underlayment, which encapsulated it. And that's not a problem, you can still do it, it's just that you can, I'm gonna tell you, and you could, sniff around all you want with that. I don't ever believe and that floor since then has been replaced probably once more after that, right? After Jimmy Downs did it, this is probably,
yeah, Chief Downs did it, and then if that's the floor that's been there since he replaced it.
okay,
So, and then the contractors came out, they were expecting just to go down to the Luan, not below that, so.
fine. As long as that's what they're doing, but as soon as you pull up that Luan, you disturb and you're in a mess with that, so, and that's fine. I'm just being nervous nilly over it because if they come back, because Jimmy Downs came to us and said he needed, I don't know, all this much more money to do an abatement, and we had to have to take the police department, put it in a trailer and all, that was, I don't know, 15 years ago, I think. Yeah. Okay, great, as long as we have it covered. Do we have a motion?
Sure. I move to award the police station floor replacement contract to Capital Carpet and Flooring Specialists.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Cool.
Okay, item 5, town clerk appointment request. This is actually to have the select board provide the police department with instruction to provide a police officer for elections. So I don't think there's any questions. You have a motion?
Sure. I move to authorize the police chief to assign police details for the 2024 calendar year elections. Yep. Presidential primary, March 5th, 2024, 1 officer, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. But that should probably be, is it 9 p.m. that night?
Yeah,
For the primary, the
Primaries.
presidential.
Yeah, for the state and federal election.
Okay. Annual town election, May 20th, 1 officer, noon to 8 p.m. State primary election, September 3rd, 2024, 1 officer, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. State presidential election, November 5th, 2024, 1 officer, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. April 2nd for the special town meeting
Election.
noon time to 8 p.m.
Ready?
Yeah.
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I almost thought to go and order the dates, but I better not screw this up anymore.
Okay, moving along. 0 Hall Street land donation. Mr. Jason.
I don't have much more than what I said to you.
Yeah.
And what you have in your packet is the owner of this parcel, which is landlocked. It doesn't look like a developable parcel, but,
I think it's deeded that way that it can't.
is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So.
I'm sorry, it's deeded what way?
So when Alexander Way went in,
Yeah.
the rear lots that each homeowner was given on Hall Street and then a couple on Lake Street, they were deeded as undevelopable lots. But you can't connect them to your house lot either, is my understanding. So you can't make your house lot any larger. It's just another parcel that's attached. And it's deed restricted as undevelopable.
So even if you had a
Directly.
shared driveway or something,
So, again,
even if you had like a shared driveway to access the parcel, you still can't.
yeah, and rear lot. And
Yeah.
Joni's on the planning board, rear lot, you need 5 acres, I think, so for a backland lot
With frontage.
with frontage, yeah, and this doesn't qualify for that, so.
And it does directly abut designated open spaces.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that's a good thing. I don't know if you did, there was a request by the Conservation Commission to support the commission, the select board to accept this and put it under the control of the Conservation Commission.
Even though the open space is under the towns,
But it doesn't, it's not necessarily becoming part of that.
Yeah.
It's still a standalone lot.
I'm gonna tell you my own thoughts on this. Oh, hang on a second. Joni,
That small lot on Hall Street, that, we talked about, affordable housing there or whatever. What is that? Is that also considered community or conservation land at this point? The lot I'm talking about, there's when Alexander Way was first being developed.
Yeah.
The idea was to come in,
the rail trail, yeah,
it'll come to me.
Lake Street?
Lake Street, thank you. And come up and around and go out this portion of, this piece of property that was deemed, pretty, to be in a pretty dangerous spot. And, so it was kind of, not considered viable. That's why we ended up with a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, because I believe that piece of property connects to this 1 acre, just in a small.
It might, yeah, if you're speaking about there's a frontage lot that's about the same size, 1 acre as well,
Yeah, it's a
right?
small.
Right, that has direct frontage on Hall Street.
Right.
Yeah, so this is like 5 o'clock to that.
it's like the corner,
The
like
corner, of
Colorado and
the
Wyoming.
northwest
touching the
corner of this lot touches the southeast corner of that lot
Right.
on Hall Street.
Right, now, my question is, who owns the lot with the frontage? Is that?
I don't know, I'd have to check the assessment map real quick.
Commission, like the other, it was a conservation, development, right?
Yeah, it was an open space.
There's an
subdivision.
open space development there.
Open space
I
development.
don't know who holds,
So any of the extra property there would be,
well, not, right, it wouldn't be developed because that has to be held as open space.
well, that's what I'm saying, so it's not possible to.
For this to be, no, it wouldn't be.
I think Karen just said the
It's
deed's
like-
restricted,
The
right?
deed, so that 1323 is owned by the town, and that's the one in
Yeah.
the front right here,
Right, yeah,
and they're deed restricted to be undevelopable. The intention, so you never, that was the wisdom of,
What was that now,
they're deeded to be undevelopable.
what's that,
that lot, oh,
lot
all the lots.
It's on Wall Street.
right,
Is that just because it's only 1 acre?
That's probably just because that's what was agreed to with the
When the
developer.
deal was put together.
Yeah,
yeah.
when
Yeah,
the planning board and, all the different boards sort of came together to hash out that project, so. You could always change a deed if you really wanted to,
I mean, my only,
business.
I don't, maybe we need to think this through a little bit. My only concerns, and it's purely a business discussion, right? If we say yes to this, it's not a tax issue because the tax is like $105 a year, right? It's backland. As soon as we say yes to that, we've set a precedent to take on other lots. And I think that's
Which
not,
we have done.
yeah, but
Yeah, that's not a new, thought
We've
process.
accepted plenty of, there've been lots.
Yeah,
that
but
have
we
been
kind of accepted them with an understanding that they were gonna get, they were part of an extension of an
No, I
existing
wouldn't-
open space area? No?
Well, this is part of
That,
it.
that is,
This whole area here
Mhm.
is all open space, as is Larder Field, though that has a different use. But this open space portion of, is held as open space, part of
Okay,
the
I see
open
what you're
space
saying, yeah,
subdivision.
yeah. I didn't know what that was.
Yeah,
though I love building houses and getting more people in town and having more great residents, this type of donation makes sense in the sense that it expands already designated conservation and parkland. And there's no street frontage, so that's why it has almost no value, or else this landowner would have sold it already.
it has value, just not building value.
Yeah, I mean, but you can't even, you have to walk up a pretty steep hill to even get up there, so.
So then it has value as being open space.
Yeah, or timber.
Timber.
So, you know, but if that's the case, if it is put into the custody of the Conservation Commission, then that gives them the ability to manage it in that way, perhaps timber. And then you can, has the wording for it to be specifically as open space will protect it in that.
You have any thoughts? No suggestions, no comments? You
No,
gotta
I
be
mean, I
good for
think,
some.
I don't know if you want to do, if anyone's been out there, if you want to do any due diligence on the property before we accept it. I mean, I don't know what it looks like, what's on there,
So,
what
Yeah,
type of soils are there, like any of that. And I think there needs to be some follow-up with the property owner, obviously. And then, we can engage legal on, you know, the steps we have to take to accept it on.
before we answer, or have Joni ask her question, so there are some lots back there that have things like degraded cars, junk and trash. So I would want to have someone just walk it to make sure we're not taking,
Liability.
buckets of battery acid, or, whatever you could possibly think of.
I'd be happy to.
Just to make sure we're not getting a PC, what do they call it, like a PCP site or something like that. Not that you get one of those there, but I don't know, right? We should do our due diligence.
I'll be happy to look at it.
And it would probably be a good project to have the land use committee to think about these other opportunities as they come down the pipeline. Because to Leah's point and Ron's point, there might be others that come up over time, so.
Well, I have a question, does undevelopable, whatever word is that the same as unusable?
Yeah, pretty much.
So what,
Well, I mean,
But you can change that.
undevelopable means you can't build a structure to live there in. Unusable, you could do a forest cutting, you selective cut to harvest some timber, you could walk through it, you could, so usable and developable are different terms.
You can make it a pollinating, so like Pepperell has a couple lots that are turning into pollination areas where they're gonna till it and they're gonna plant seeds that were friendly for butterflies, honeybees, and they're gonna try to do that every year with their conservation dollars to increase the pollination of the area, so. To your point, you could do different things with it. How do we get there to do that? So
So we're gonna,
table it maybe.
table this at this point, and Conscom will walk the property to determine its health,
Okay,
all right? And get back with us, and then at that point, we'll get with town council and the landowner. If Conscom comes back and says the lot's clear and clean, healthy, and we'll go forward with, getting Marek engaged to take legal ownership of the property.
And the one thing that I'd almost like, we gotta figure out who's gonna stake it, so we know what the property lines are.
Is it not already staked when Alexander Way was done?
I mean, that was done back in 2015, 2014. So to think the lots are all still staked, it's probably
Yeah.
a long shot, and
Yeah.
that can be expensive to have a surveyor come out and have to stake something.
well, then you may have a plot plan.
Joan?
Does anybody know what the frontage is on Hall Street for that, town-owned lot?
I don't, it's an acre and a quarter lot.
And it looks fairly square,
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
probably.
We need 200.
You need 200 for a 2-acre lot, so, I mean, it could be 200.
But all these house lots are smaller than the previous 2 acre,
Yeah,
they're all like 1 acre lots, so.
we don't have that
they're not
info
conforming,
readily
so.
available.
What's that?
We don't have that information readily available.
But probably
Well, I'm
not
just saying, we're looking to raise a few bucks here, and, would it be possible to, put it in a driveway, consider those 2 sections, a 2 acre lot, and put in a driveway up to that acre that's in the back there, and, sell it as a house lot. I have to check my book, I don't know.
I don't think you can do that the way the deeds are written.
You know my answer, Joan?
Yeah.
If the town wanted
I
to
guess
sell
I
it,
know
it could support a
Karen's
variance
answer.
request to build on
Yeah, you have to rewrite the deed.
But the deed for the one that,
it. I'm just talking about
Yeah.
the town-owned parcel.
Yeah, it's deeded as municipal, so it's like 91 River Street. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we have some probably due diligence to do, just
Yeah,
to sort of get
yeah.
our ducks in a row here. And even see if it's a viable, desirable piece of land for the town.
well, that one was already deemed not to be safe to enter, although they've used it for the subdivision. So why is it all gonna be usable now? And you've already said the deed on these are all declared to be undeveloped,
Yeah.
so.
Well, it's one thing, I think, if you have,
Yeah,
you know, a bunch of
turn in the
cars
street
coming and
goes
going,
wild.
but if you had just one, one house there, a driveway for one house, it's not that big a deal.
3 more kids,
I don't know.
Joan.
Huh?
3 more kids, Joan. Right?
Hey, I'm just trying to raise some money.
I hear you, I hear you.
All right, so that's what we'll do with that. Item 7, PFAS, Phase 2 IMA.
My favorite.
Now, I know it is.
Okay, so you have as you know, we signed a phase 1, IMA for the phase 1 piece of the project.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. The second phase is the loop. So it's from 113 to Kemp Street on Groton Street, and then Jersey Street and Pepperell to North Street and Groton. So make it numbered. So this outlines that there, from this morning to about, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, there were 2 changes that were made to the version that I shared with you. One was that the initial version had the town of Groton constructing the phase of phase 2 between Jersey and North. After some discussions today, it was clear that Pepperell wanted to construct all of phase 2. So that changes in
Okay.
the other change was, which I think is, we all understand this, but Groton wanted to make sure it was clear in the agreement that the portion between 113 and Kemp Street, if that portion wasn't able to move forward because of permitting complications or some other reason, the other portion would not happen. I think they didn't want to be on the hook for that portion if there wasn't going to be the full loop, which I think everyone knows and agrees to.
Yeah.
But it wasn't all that clear in the agreement, so they asked for some language to do that. Otherwise, it's pretty consistent with the phase 1 agreement. And it's a result of, a lot of back and forth between the 3 communities.
But this document that we have here is the one that we're gonna act on.
Yes, that is the fully updated version, correct. In the town of Groton, their select board is meeting tonight as well and taking this issue up as well. You might remember in the phase 1 IMA, it did set a deadline because we didn't want this to drag out. So the deadline in the phase 1 agreement is the end of this month.
Okay.
So we are up against the deadline. I usually don't like to be racing to the finish, but in this case, we are kind of racing to the finish. So just so you're aware of that as well.
And we don't think there's something we don't know going on out there, right? It's like, like if they do that, is there something we're unaware of?
No, not,
No, this is just a cleaning up of an agreement and contract.
yeah,
basically.
well, it's, yeah.
No, this is actually a second
It's a-
IMA for the phase two.
It's part of the
Following the.
phasing of the project.
Yeah. We had two separate IMAs
Yep.
because Pepperell wasn't really involved in the first one.
Mhm.
So we need Pepperell involved in this one, considering the portion of the project is in Pepperell. And they're really, the idea, as you know, is to work with them ideally to secure funding because they're an environmental justice community. We can
Pick up their
not
funding
only get
sources.
no interest loan, but potentially get some principal forgiveness.
Yeah,
So, so the idea is, was to have two, one including Pepperell, and then the initial phase, was just in Groton and Dunstable.
okay.
The motion?
If Leah's comfortable with it,
Yep,
I see her doing some notes over there, so.
now I'm just checking the spots for the changes. I'm
Do you
good.
want to go through them real quick? or-
No, I went
You
through
got
it
it?
beforehand,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
I'll move to approve the intermunicipal agreement for water system expansion related to phase 2 of the PFAS mitigation project at the Groton Dunstable Regional High School between the towns of Dunstable, Pepperell, and Groton as presented, and authorize the chair to sign the agreement on behalf of the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on, item number 8. Budget review and discussion.
Skip that, I
Wanna
guess.
do that?
until-
Advisory board gets
until
here?
advisory board gets here.
Okay. Special town meeting for March 26th, open special town meeting warrant.
I've got no issue with this if we just want to motion this, unless someone else does.
Yes, sir? Do you have a
Nope, I'm
motion?
good.
Move to open the warrant for the special town meeting scheduled for Tuesday, March 26th, 2024 at 7 PM on Tuesday, January 30th, 2023, and to close the special town meeting warrant on Monday, February 26th, 2024 at 4
Wait,
PM.
I would like to make a correction on that.
Right, that doesn't make sense, right?
Change
does not.
that to January 30th, 2024.
All right. Oh, I didn't want to screw it up that time. I just wanted to read what was written. I will reread that. Move to open the warrant for the special town meeting scheduled for Tuesday, March 26th, 2024 at 7 PM on Tuesday, January 30th, 2024, and to close the special town meeting warrant on Monday, February 26th, 2024 at 4 PM.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
We confused what year it was for a while.
I know.
I was reading it and I'm like,
I know. Still getting used to
I
2024.
don't know.
I was afraid you were going to hit me because maybe I reread things for sensitive.
So sensitive. Sad.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're gonna move on here to item number 10. Board of Selectmen quarterly newsletter.
Yep, so Jason has put together the most recent quarterly newsletter. It has been posted on all the websites and social media. So the discussion now is, what is the thought of the board of doing the mailings again? I know last time we all paid for it, for the printing and the postage. It's a little bit longer this time. The document is 8 pages instead of 6 pages, so the printing would be a little bit more. I know we don't have it in our budget to pay for this. There was talk of us doing it out of pocket again. There was a little pushback on that. There was a recommendation to perhaps use ARPA funds to fund it this year and then think of how it could possibly be brought into the budget going forward in the new fiscal year, perhaps. I guess I just want to get a feel from you two of the importance of it being sent individual. And we have a lot of residents here today. Maybe we could get their
Oh, yeah, I
feedback as well.
Just stole the thought.
I mean,
Let's pull the crowd
So
here.
I feel, I got a lot of positive feedback of people actually having in their hands We know there, a lot of people don't always use Facebook or Nextdoor or social media or go to the website to get this information, but considering where we are and actually having an individual special town meeting to review our budget, this particular newsletter addresses all of that information. So I personally think it's important to have this printed and mailed out to every household again. I have been willing, I mentioned this to you, I will cover it if we don't find the funds anywhere else, because I believe strongly enough that that's what should happen.
Eric, you have a question?
What was the cost last year? What do you think it would be?
So it's generally running us about $300 of printing, but it may vary
No, a piece.
each.
So this, it was $950 for the printing and about $270 for the mailing. This version, because it's a longer document, requires a different type, instead of a large piece of paper that can be folded, it has to be bound with staples. So the printing with that would be, I'm sorry?
Is this the information about the override to get that out?
Yes.
What was the total cost though? Ballpark?
The printing would probably, and the mailing would probably be about the same, about $270, and the printing this year was $1070 for the 8 pages, I believe.
Jeff?
Just, one, I hate to see you guys pay stuff out of pocket. Two, people may not go on like social media like Facebook or, but there's also the email list that people can subscribe to. It's on the town website, I'm assuming. And as much as I love to hold something in my hand, I think it's something, again, I don't think you guys should be paying out of pocket. It's the resident's responsibility to go and find that information.
Oh, I agree. I mean, it's, getting this info is a two-way street.
I agree.
for sure. But at the same time, there is a demographic that just aren't gonna do that. They're just not. And they're still voters, so.
We're just trying to get the word out.
Hold on a second. Hold on a minute, please. I still got somebody in the back.
What about, instead of mailing the whole packet, you mail a postcard with the information to the website or, and have 100 of them printed here? If you want a hard copy, come pick up the full packet.
That's an
Or,
interesting concept.
is everybody, I mean, they download, they scan, they look at the computer, you know, here's, go to this website, you know, so instead of mailing a whole packet, mail a postcard with the information. And
That's a good
have it
idea.
available for somebody that wants it.
Right, and then we could just print out a few copies.
Mr. Tully?
Have you guys reached out to Greater Lowell to see if they could print it as part of their education? I know it's got policy information on it, but they might do something to save some money.
No, we haven't done that. No. Do they have a print shop?
Yes,
They do, huh? Yeah. We haven't done that. We haven't done that.
It's just,
Yeah,
they do
Yeah.
offer some services to the towns, so.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, perfect.
Kate?
Okay,
I think those are both great ideas. We can even put on when you send it out, is mail in a self-addressed envelope, like that, actually. I mean, you can do that whole thing and then you say that.
All good ideas.
I just, devil's advocate here, my dad is 89 and doesn't check email, doesn't check websites, but he's lived in town since 1970 and he needs a newsletter.
Yeah. No, I agree, you know, and I guess all these ideas really could,
But if you got that postcard, it would be less expensive.
all right, so let's talk with Greater Lowell about printing this thing, because that may defer our cost on it. And then what does it, find out what the cost is to get a postcard? Yeah,
We have to do one. We have to do one. We do them for the
Town meeting. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
not, it's very cheap.
so do a little, just, yeah, then let's
Yeah,
follow
all right.
that path before we,
so the general feeling coming, do people, I mean, I think, was there appreciation of having it being mailed to your house or not? Generally, yes.
ma'am?
Could it be added to neighbor somehow?
It's a little too long for that, so.
There's no like short version that could slip in there?
Not with this particular issue, this is the short version. the printing version, there's a lot of information out there, so.
Put postcard here,
I'm sorry?
put that postcard.
Being
Idea,
neighbor.
add it to the neighbor to neighbor.
Oh, sure, yeah,
That,
Yeah, yeah.
the information on the
Yeah.
postcard could be, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Have like a page just to help offset the cost of getting information.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It's tricky because neighbor to neighbor also has like business ads, and this is a pure information related to just Dunstable, because neighbor to neighbor also has Tingsboro and, you know, ads for legal services in Lowell, or, you know, things that are equally important, but this is just for Dunstable residents. It's purely information that's going on within
Yeah.
our schools, our town buildings, our police departments, fire department, you know, things like that. So it's tricky trying to find that blend. And then more often than not, people tell us, I have no idea what's going on. And I'm like, well, if we send it to your house, and like we felt passionately about it
Right.
recently, you know, this would be helpful, but
Well, and that's the same feeling I have, is
Yeah.
that, you know, we want everybody to know this situation, and the only way we know for sure, it is if it is mailed specifically to every single household in town. So maybe it was just selfish for us, that we could then say exactly that. We mailed it to you, we
Yeah.
can't make you read it, but we mailed it to you. So we have tried every avenue to get the information out.
stuff to come up with $1,200 myself, just to be like, all right, I'm gonna budget extra $1,200 out of my pocket, like,
Right, no, I hear you.
a lot of volunteers in town are spending a lot of time away from their families, and then you gotta double it up when you're gonna go spend money to help. You gotta sell another house, you know, or you gotta drive another Uber, whatever, you know. It's tough to make it all neat, but it's such an important topic that I'm really torn, to be honest. Like, is it worth $450 to send it out?
All right, so I think what we're gonna do is, as Mr. Tully suggested, we'll talk to Greater Lowell, if they can print, find out what that's worth. And then the cards, so we do have a couple of options here to take a look at. Time's not our friend at this point, because there is some urgency to want to get this out, so.
Certainly before March 25th.
Yeah, absolutely.
At that point, we'll be going into our next quarterly newsletter.
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, again, if you go back to the cards and people read the cards and say, these are available to print.
Yeah.
Pick up that, they can be here, they can be at a Tully Farm Store, they can be at General.
Yeah.
You could have them, you know, stacked for people. I mean, it's just
Absolutely.
much cheaper than.
Yeah.
You know, more people probably flip through it and.
Yeah.
Recycle. But they have the card, you know, for people that don't go to websites, they're available to pick up at these 4 locations. The
Well,
library, town hall.
It's the printing part that's expensive, not the
Well, you
mailing.
don't have to.
Yeah.
print for every resident, you just print.
Print a few out here, yeah.
Yeah.
We'd also see the analytics off a QR code, see how many people are actually doing it, which is where my nerdy head goes. I'm like, well, how many people are actually activating it and doing it?
And then you can sell their information as part of economic development.
Absolutely.
Now we're talking. A little municipal market study there.
But
This is what
it
it's all about.
is on the town website, so you can get that. So for people who need it printed out, like your father and my parents, then. I
There
can
are
do that,
printed
too.
copies.
Of the
Here,
recent one?
Library,
Yeah.
yeah, here, library, the cafe. Maybe that's it, but yeah, we have.
You have some printed out?
Yep.
Okay,
Well said.
John's not.
Joni?
You might also check with Jeff Alice. You know,
No, I've talked with.
I think we've done that already.
you have talked with him. Nothing they can do for it.
I mean, I've gotten quotes from a couple of different places, and the one I have is the cheapest. I didn't ask Jeff to donate it, but I didn't go that route. He does that for the land trust with the calendars, so,
He donates.
yeah.
Cool. Anything else on that one? Move on, town administrators. report.
I'll run through this quick. We talked about the roof and ceiling repairs at town hall. He had to come back because even though we thought it was weather tight, it did leak again. So he was back. He thinks he chased down the cause, and we've been good up to this point since then. So, again, I know I mentioned this at our last meeting, but that chimney is a major source of the issue.
Yeah.
And I did, I talked to the chair of the Historical Commission about it, sent her pictures, and she plans to talk about it at her next meeting.
Yeah, there's not a chimney.
Where that's right. It looks like it.
It's a
Just
facade.
No, it's an elevator, hoistway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it is.
91 River, as we were talking about the town hall roof, I think you brought up, Mr. Chairman, that there was a leak at 91 River, so Mike McDonald, who did this work, met Dave Tully out there, and he's gonna refine an estimate for that work, so we don't want, I mean, that building's actually in pretty good shape.
Other than that.
Other than that.
Yeah.
So I don't want to just ignore that and allow it to get worse and worse, so.
Well, there's a lot of stuff in there.
And there, we are actively using it, for storage, so, it seems like a small and affordable project, so, I'll keep you informed of that.
Mhm.
We already talked about before, police station. You already know this, but the fire safety earmark that we received for $50,000 was affected by the governor's 9C cuts.
Mhm.
So that's been cut in half to $25,000, so it makes it a lot more difficult to buy a new vehicle with only $25,000, so we're working on a plan, we'll be back, with a plan, hopefully soon. We had a training, was it last week, open meeting law, conflict of interest, town council provided it, pretty well attended, we had, I think, around 25 people attend, and I thought it was really productive for those who are in attendance. And we shared all those materials
Yeah.
following it to all our board committees and staff. Union building reuse, we have a meeting, a second public meeting scheduled for February 8th. As you know, we went through a survey, 200 responses, by the way, which is a great response. So a lot of people took the survey to try to help us, help the town, help the committee prioritize and identify viable reuse options for the site. So that work is ongoing. 41 Lowell Street, we had our review meeting with board committee members and staff last week. The Affordable Housing Committee and Planning Board are meeting on February 5th again for the second time jointly to try to come up with a recommendation on the LIP proposal at the Dumont property. I sent out notes from that meeting to you all earlier today. I have one update that I'll send you, but it's those are, I think, pretty well reflect the dialogue at the meeting. You already saw the year review we did. At some point, I'm gonna send an email to talk about some potential CPC applications. Just wanna make sure we're all on board with that. And Joan, get ready, because we're gonna be sending them in soon. There's also a Mass Trails grant that I met with NEMCOG and our engineer on Thursday of last week. So we were planning initially to submit an application to Mass Trails for the boardwalk project at Drew's Landing. Concom has decided not to do that. So we are now talking about, the deadline is on Thursday, so it's gotta be a quick turnaround. But we're now talking about kind of trying to build off our Walk Dunstable project and further pursue some of the off-road trail connections that we may be able to develop within kind of town center, the library, et cetera. So again, I'm gonna send you some info, hopefully tomorrow, but ideally, I can get everyone to sign a letter of support for that application if we want to move forward. And I think there is a 20% match, so we'll have to get CPC funds to match that. Open space and rec plan expires in 2025. Carol sent an email about this. So that's potentially, depending on, I don't know what you think, Leah, but potentially an NEMCOG
Yeah, I think, I mean, I will certainly be asking them for some help. We have to do the public survey and they've all useful with that.
Okay,
Doing the maps, the update of the maps, and
okay,
so I would like to, you said before, we could get on their list, but
Yeah.
not necessarily have to use them if we don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
okay. Sent you, if you have any feedback on the template I put together for the performance evaluations, let me
Yeah, I
know.
gotta answer that email.
No problem. I think we're good otherwise. Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yes,
I'm good.
all right, any new items? Karen, Leah?
The only thing I heard, I know we still have to talk about this another time, is the blue bins, right? That's the only thing that's on our
Yeah,
checklist for another meeting to come.
yeah, there's a couple of things going on with
Yeah.
that, so.
I thought so.
Yeah.
The blue bins. But
Clothing bin.
just something I know we can talk about in the future, so.
Okay. So that concludes our agenda for the select board meeting. I want to call a 10-minute recess to this meeting, and we're going to rejoin with a joint meeting with all the members of the finance committee or advisory board. So we'll take a short recess until 6 o'clock until we get the advisory board here. So if you want to stay, you're welcome to stay, but we're going to take a brief recess at this point.
Cool. Feeling great.
Not touching it. Sue gets mad at me if I even go near it.
So leave it alone. I can take you out there.
Let's see it. Everything okay? Yeah. Yeah, how's the same?
Yeah, staying busy.
board, we're gonna ask the chair of the advisory board to call the advisory board to order.
Call the meeting of the advisory board to order.
We also have Barton Dunstable here tonight. Dr. Laura is here tonight, Lacey, Rafi, Sherry. So, at this point, this discussion is focused around the operating budget for the upcoming fiscal. And, Jason is going to, pick this discussion up at this point, so.
Do we want to, like, I think a bunch of us are pretty well versed in this screen, but I don't know if we want to lose time walking through each slide, or like, is there a way to, I'm just trying to think efficiently here for us, so.
Well, I think, I don't know how much the advisory board has seen this.
We have
I think they're pretty well
a few
versed.
Yeah, and
times.
I don't, it's much to Karen's point, I don't want to revisit these items if we're well schooled in it, but we do have a lot of people here from the public that may not have seen this.
Yeah, we've gone through it 2 or 3 times in our meeting.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe you can do like a high level summary and kind of.
One good slide.
We do have a lot of people.
No pressure.
Summarize the
I
20
really-
pages into.
This is only
Just
12,
the end.
it's 12 slides, I'll just breeze through them real quick, because I think everybody here is very well versed with, but there's no new information in these slides, and we talked about all of the contents of this presentation, I think in great detail. So, having said that, I will run through it quickly. We all know our major revenue source is the tax levy. It's 80, with the override budget, it's 87% of our overall revenues. We all know we're relying too heavily on free cash. We're looking to reduce that in the 24 budget and in future years in 26 and 27 by $100,000 each year. The regional school district's assessment comprised 65% of our town's overall budget spending. The remaining balance is town operations and debt service. Here's a breakdown of that, which you all are aware of. This is just a high-level summary. What this essentially shows is that our revenues and expenditures are up by $875,473, which is ultimately what the general override request would be based on the town administrator's budget. This is just an illustration of one of the reasons why we're carrying such a deficit and why we need an override. All of our revenue, all in, is $386,000. A school budget increase, the school assessment increase alone is $906,000. So it's just to illustrate the fact that all our new revenue, all in, is far less than just the school budget increase, let alone considering any increases in the town side. So these are just the overall budget increases numbers you see here. In 25, it's a little over $1 million. 26, it's a little under $1 million, and in 27, it's right around $900,000. This graph shows where the major drivers are. Again, it's schools, then you see public safety, insurance, and assessments are the largest increases. This shows town versus school increases. Over 25, 26, and 27, we see for 25, 11.73% increase, then 10%, then 8.15% increase on the school side. On the town side for 25, 2.68, 2.18 in 26, 2.53 in 27. These are the assumptions that we've made to try to project out and forecast the budget for 26 and 27. Again, we've gone through these in great detail. So the override request over the 3-year period, if that is the decision the board's made, for 25, it's 875, 26, 651, 27, 555. Grand total is $2,082,365. This outlines the impact on the single-family tax bill based on that override request. In total, over the 3-year period, $1,710.97 for the average single family tax bill.
And that's just for the override, for those looking at the screen, just the override,
Correct.
That would be in addition to,
the 2.5% expectation.
2.5 plus new growth, plus all the excluded debt.
And potential debt exclusions, whatever, life,
Potentially.
capital.
And we had discussed this one time versus broken out over the 3 years. Is this broken out over the 3 years? Right.
yeah, so the
So it's a
first year.
total impact of $1,700, but it's a staged or measured growth. Yeah.
Right.
Phased in, yeah.
Year 25 would be 700 plus.
Mhm.
26 would be 535, 27, 462. So the total. would be 360.
And this is a high-level sketch of the process, advisory and select review, which you're in the process of doing, and recommend budget. Ballot question needs to be the town clerk by the 26th of February. There's a forum scheduled with Groton School District in Dunstable on the 27th of February. We need to post the special town meeting on the 12th. The advisory board has to have their budget hearing. And then that's all leading up to a special town meeting on the 26th of March and a special town election on April 2nd.
Once it, is it somewhere on the 26th, has it become a warrant article at that point, or are we allowed to provide our opinion on the 27th if it's the sample ballot question is turned in by the 26th?
We just went over this too. I need my cheat sheet out, honestly. You're talking about with regard to the conflict of interest law. Yeah. We have, based on the training we had, we are able to educate in a way that we normally would educate people, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So, can't advocate, but we can educate
Absolutely.
based on, and, you know, I think leading up to right now, we're, I think, pretty aggressive with trying to get the word out on a variety of different things. So I think, you know, using the same tools that we typically use to get the word out on this and educate people on this, I think is
I really
reasonable.
want to stress the fact that at some point, you've done all the things on social media, everything's on the website. At some point, people that don't know, I blame them at this point. Because the information's all there. And if they want to know, it's there. But it's, you know, at some point, they have to take responsibility and figure it out.
But people will still show up and say, oh, I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And vote against it.
I did pretty good. That was pretty cool.
Beautiful.
So that's really it. I mean, like I said, we've gone hours and hours and had discussions about this already. So that's the high level.
So we locked into those increases from the school. Is that the official final numbers? Is that the assessment increase or the overall increase of their budget? Those
are the assessment increases. That also includes the revenue reductions, correct?
What about capital? The schools?
The capital was in the.
It's in the number.
Yeah. And it's for the,
Do you want, they have a presentation?
So, yeah, I mean, Dr. Laura, you guys, and Sherry, and Raf, and Lacey, you guys have a, deck, I think, right? There's a bunch of slides in it. Do we want to have the district walk through this? Is it beneficial to do that, everybody? Jake?
Yeah, I agree. I'm just,
Dr. Laura? Sherry?
Sure, yeah, sure, can start, I'll take it. You just want to do the capital?
No, start with the first, just walk through them like you were doing. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so. Before I start with the words. Okay. So, Just to, a number of the questions that we received are what does level services mean in terms of the school district? The best answer I can, or example I can give you, is that we currently have world language at the middle school and at the high school. If we continue to just have foreign language at the middle school and the high school, that's a level services budget. If we were to try to add it at the elementary school, that would not be a level services budget. So we still have the same programs, we still have the same number of maintenance people, with the addition of the one for Florence Roach, but then it's the same level of service in terms of how many buildings, how many square feet, how many maintenance people. The same number of technology support. There is, we have behavioral support, but we're going to have more students at one school, so we're talking about increasing the behavioral support at that school, because we can't totally take it away from Swallow Union, because we can't tell children that they can only have trouble making their choices regarding their behavior on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We have to have someone there 5 days a week. So because of the increased numbers at Florence Roach, we have to add an additional person. But in terms of the services, they are level. And now Sherry will take us through the next 4 items.
So that was well sourced, we don't have to hit that one again. The major drivers of why our assessments are up are we are using $400,000 less of E&D. We added $100,000 of full day kindergarten, that represents there's about $400,000 in salaries in the revolving account right now, so that those are going to the general fund, which makes it your assessments. We have anticipated new positions, which I'll describe after. Wages and salaries are up $1.9 million. Health insurance, right now we have the placeholder of 10% increase in there. We are running a little below that right now in our claims, but we don't get our official renewal until the end of February, beginning of March. Utilities, we're pretty much on par for just a small increase, except for the fact that we needed to add a line item for $100,000 for PFAS, and that is for the water that we're paying for, that's being delivered to homes, the filtration systems that have been installed in a couple homes. The testing that has to be done, as we're doing, as it does on all of those homes and our own in the high school. And so those add up, just those major drivers alone add up to $3.6 million.
Are there any questions about this slide before we go on? Let me just add that the $100,000, just to be clear, for kindergarten is money that would have come from kindergarten fees that would have been in a revolving account. But now, the school committee guidance was to reduce those fees. If you remember, originally it was to remove those fees totally. So now this is just a reduction of those fees, and that would be to the amount of $100,000, which is now showing up in the general fund. And again, the first line item there, the school committee last year we used $911,000 of P&D. Originally it was to go down to zero this year. We went back to the school committee, based on our conversations with the leadership of both towns, and asked them to change it to 500,000, which then shows a difference of 400,000.
Quick question.
Yes.
Can I ask what the reduction in the fees was for the kindergarten for full day?
We haven't calculated yet, because I use whatever balance is left over from the current year to reduce the next year's. So until I know what the remaining balance is, school committee will set
Set the fee.
in the spring.
Quick question. So the majority of it's the estimated wages and salary increases. That's kind of fundamental. And those are locked in. I just don't know, is that a 3-year lock?
Well,
There's a slide on.
there's a slide on that when we get
Okay.
two more. I think you're gonna want more detail on that.
Yeah, and it's going to piggyback onto the anticipated new positions. They're also going to be part of increases the following year. So it's like, this is a ripple effect.
Yep. Okay. Sure.
I don't know if you remember from our earlier slides, but the new positions that we thought we were going to add were over 400,000. So as we've gotten more information, we've pared down the number of new positions that we believe that we're going to need. In the second grade, currently, the new school is built to have 6 classrooms per grade. In the first grade at Florence Road right now, there's only 4 classrooms because of classes, because of the class size. And 1 will be coming over from Swallow Union, which would make 5. And whether or not the population is big enough to have 6 classrooms, that's what that extra teacher would be for. So again, this is, when we talk about level services, we offer second grade. This is the number of teachers that would be needed to support second grade. The behavior.
Sherry.
Stuff Danny's talked about.
Sherry,
Yes.
so how many classrooms are at Florence Road right now?
So right now, there's 5 at every grade with the exception of first grade.
Okay.
Generally what happens is we get close to the number of 26, then we would look at possibly opening up. If every classroom had 26, so say there's 5 classrooms, if every classroom had 26, we would look at opening a new section. 2 years ago, the kindergarten numbers were low enough so that we said we should go with 4 classrooms. We perpetuated that as those students moved to first grade. We kind of rolled the dice because it was on that edge where we really should have 5 classrooms and back and forth between 4 classrooms and 5 classrooms. And the profile of those students is such that it's been very challenging this year. And so right now on the books, we have, if that would go to 5, and then 1 classroom would move over from Swallow Union, and that would make 6 at the building site.
Okay, so that's why you're only talking about grade 2, because the rest of it's gonna come over from Swallow Union.
Yes.
They're only gonna have 2 classrooms per grade, right?
That's right, Swallow Union only has 2 classrooms.
Is 26 a standard number, or is that special?
That's what I've used that number for like the last 15 years in the districts that I've worked in. It seems to work okay. In the contract, okay, in the operative word here. In the contract, it's for teachers, it says that the school committee recognizes that the optimal size for a elementary school classroom would be 22 or less. So 26 is a lot, but otherwise what happens if it gets 23 and you make another classroom, you're gonna have classes of 16. And that's not economically supported, so.
And 70,000 is a loaded number that includes all the health insurance and.
Yes, a grade 2 teacher is going to have a significant amount of applications, not like we used to have. We used to put in a grade 2 teacher and like an hour later, we got 250 applications.
Yeah.
Now at the end of the day, we made 40.
Yeah.
So it's come down significantly, but it's large enough that we will be able to, get someone at that cost easily. The next 2 are gonna be challenging.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So talk about behaviors, ELL, we currently have 2 ELL teachers for our district. However, our numbers have increased with the number of students that require services. And the compliance ratio of teacher to ELL students is getting close enough that we really should have 3 on board and we only have 2. So that is why we put that in. Again, ELL is a service that we currently offer. This is just because we have more children that we need to offer it to, that we need the extra teacher. One maintenance position for, which we had always said we were going to add when the building came on. And actually back in 2022, we had a vacancy in a maintenance department that we never filled that position, knowing that we were going to then fill it now coming with the 2025. So that's the maintenance position.
So how many, right now, it's an old building and there's obviously a lot of maintenance that's needed. Is there any expectation that the workload would go down because if it's a new building?
No, well,
Our
my
principal.
experience has been with a new building, they just think that everything's gonna work perfectly and it doesn't. So actually the person that we're looking to hire would have to be someone who actually knows all these new computerized systems. So that is a specialty that not everybody on our current team has. And this person isn't specifically for Flowro, like they're not dedicated to that they'll share their skills throughout the district, like the other, 5 that we have.
Also, the amount of square footage being influenced, which is significantly more than the current building, and generally, the level of staffing that you do is associated with the number of square feet.
That's not uncommon either, like you add a new building.
Yeah.
You're gonna add some more, perhaps more skills and actually get more expensive as systems like, everyone has like thermostats that are Nests now, it requires a specific person to put them in, whatever. It gets more expensive, doesn't get inexpensive.
Well, now they can handle it remotely, right?
Yeah.
So new.
If you're trained and qualified to do it.
And then the final asset we have is a point, to increase our part-time administrative assistant to full-time, because they're getting another 125 students in that school and the volume of work that goes along with that. We have been asked, well, if you're going to add more students there, does that mean you can decrease the administrative assistant at Swallow Union? And our answer to that would be no, because there's actually only that one person in the front office all day, and it's not doable to reduce that down by 0.4. So those are the new positions. So right now, the salary projections, we are in negotiations with UNA, which are teacher union and our professionals. And I think everybody has been aware of what's been in the news about market adjustments, and we've tried to allow for that in our projections and what we were going to need. And this, just to, I think you might know, but just for the general public to understand, our industry, the way that our salaries go up is we have steps, lanes, and then a total. So steps can go from 1 to 12, and that's your years of service or experience that you have. And in between each step could be 2, 3, 4% differential. Then when you get more education, so when you go from a bachelor's to a master's plus 15 and on, there's another differential to go from an education lane to the next. So that could be another 2% right there. And we haven't even talked about COLA. And then the COLA gets applied to the whole salary schedule. So when we talk about steps and lanes, we're talking about any kind of movement that one can make on that salary schedule. Which makes it, if we're thinking that the town only has 2.5% growth in their revenue, and our salaries move a lot quicker and higher, even with a 0 COLA, they're gonna move an average of 6%.
One of the things I would call to your attention, there was an excellent article in the Boston Globe this morning that showed the last 3 or 4 contracts with districts where they've had strikes, and they've shown what was on the books or contracts at the time, and then what the teachers were asking and what the school committee was offering at that time. I think that is something that people should take a look at. The market rate, particularly in the areas of paraprofessionals, but also in the area of teachers, is significantly more than what we were able to budget for when we came in July. Because remember, we did this budget in July, we generally don't do our budget till at least the late December, if not beginning of January. And so we were doing it 6 months ahead. The paraprofessionals, we pretty much got right on the money with what people are going and what we thought we could afford. I'm not saying that if we did it in the paper that they're asking for X, that that's what we put in the budget. But with teachers, the market changed and we did not expect it to change as much as it did.
Health insurance, just like I said, we have a 10% placeholder in there. We're hoping it's going to be less than that. We'll find out in late February, early March. Last year, our renewal was 7.52, which was less than what Harvard Pilgrim average renewal was. So we're hoping we're gonna fall below that too. And then I talked about the $100,000 that we had to add to the budget because of water. We do have it in the 5-year thing only in this year because I think the hookup should happen by 2026. And this just bullet points that based on the 5-year projection that we did in the summer, the heat and the utilities, was right where we had projected it to be. The transportation actually came down 4.8%, which was a savings of about 75,000 because we got more last year, and that has to be applied to your assessment the following year. And Middlesex retirement, which I'm usually coming to you saying it was more than we anticipated, was actually less this year. So we saved $26,000 on our Middlesex retirement assessment. So overall, our budget increase as of today is $3.4 million, which is a 7.2% operational increase. Just for reference, to see where we've fallen in the last 4 or 5 years. And just to note that the years that it was 2% was because we had SRNR funding that funded a lot of our expenses. A lot of this current year, they're all gone now, and it's into this current year's budget. So that's where we are there. The 5-year rolling average, as I've been saying for a couple of years now, every year it goes a little bit more to Dunstable. So you can see how the 5-year average rolled for Dunstable from 22.74% to 22.82%. If we were to be doing the assessment based on just current year only, you would be at 23.35. This is just, again, to point out that your assessment did increase in double digits, but our budget did not increase in double digits. It's because we have reduced revenue that now we have to make up in the assessments, and some of our expenses have increased. In the yellow is just a quick and dirty of what it looks like today. So you would have a 10.81% increase in your assessment. The assessment increases are 3.7.
I didn't see that.
Together, this just shows that.
That said we were
I think you're
11.7.
carrying what we have. This is not a one-year problem, which Jason had in his presentation as well. You do that.
So, the question we've been getting, pretty heavily is what will happen if the override's not successful. If I was to do a back and envelope, and if 80% of our, 75 to 80% of our budget is, salaries and benefits, therefore the hit's gonna come in that area primarily. So what we would expect is that without an override, we would have to reduce 30 to 31 positions. They would be across all departments, administration, central office, building administration, teaching staff, support staff, maintenance, technology. There would not be one department that would go unaffected. The other thing that I wanted to emphasize is that this is, as Sherry has said, this is not a one-year problem. So when we look at the deficit for year 2, which would be FY26, on top of that 30 to 31, there would be an additional 10% reduction without the override. And if we look at FY27, there would be an additional 10% reduction. So over a 3-year period, you're talking about a 70% reduction, where right now we have 377 people that work for the district across the board.
Yeah, this is just and this will be in the budget book, an FTE comparison. I wanted to point out that if you look under teachers unit A, you'll see that we budgeted 197.5 FTEs and currently we're at 206. And I want to explain that. What we did this year is we hired instead of contracted out for speech. Well, we had 5 speech and language pathologists on board. We now have 7. We hired 4 new occupational therapists and 1 physical therapist. And so our contracted service line is now down, because we use that funding to do these hires because it's a better, we get more bang for our buck with what we pay for in salaries and the amount of services that can happen. So that's a change that we made, in this current year. So then you can see from 24 actual to FY 25 on the teacher's line, the 3. And I explained what those new positions will be in an earlier slide.
And I also want to call to your attention that we often get a statement that has been on social media or in the press that the amount of administrators is going through the roof. And I think you can see by this chart that we actually did go up one more, but we actually have 2 new people, but we actually took 3 positions and made it into 2. So you're only seeing an increase of 1 at the central office level. And by central office, that means that they're district-wide people. They do not evaluate. They work in classrooms with teachers and students. So they are carried in the central office because they are district-wide positions, but they are not administration in the sense they do not evaluate, they do not supervise. They work in classrooms with teachers and students. And if you look at the number of school administrators, you can see that that's gone down from 2023, that was 18, and now the actual in 2024 is 15, and the projected for 2025 is 15. So that's something that we hear a lot about, and I wanted to make sure that I pointed out that actual piece of information.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
That's a great chart. I think that's a good one to help people in the public sort of understand things.
Yeah.
Can you help me understand the FY 24 budget's at 197.5 teachers in Unit A?
Yep.
And the actual was 206.
Sure, and that's what Sherry just talked about. So we have a number of positions. So Unit A
That's
is
the
not
shift.
just teachers, it also includes SLPs, PTs, so speech pathologists, PTs, and OTs. We were contracting them out because we could not fill those positions. So it is incredibly expensive to contract them out. And we're pretty much at the whim of the person we're contracting out with, and everybody across the state is contracting out because they can't fill those positions either. So we were lucky that we were able to find most of those positions in-house. And additionally, we have special education programs that we're having to increase the number of teachers in that program because of the number of students in that program. So the preschool at Butwell had to go to classrooms, so one of those is that. So I would say there are SLPs, PTs, OTs that were out, and you can see that the line for contract is down. So now they're members of our staff. And then also at Butwell, we had to add a preschool teacher. There might be one other special education teacher, I'm trying to do it off the top of my head, but it's special education services that we're required to provide by law.
And what's really interesting to me is basically our enrollment's pretty flat. I mean, just in this 2-year segment, but I know it's gone up over time, but not like a dramatic rate.
Right.
But it's the cost of education, and to your point earlier, like I was watching the news last night, and this is more for the public, and the Newton Teachers Administration and like their school committee, they're like $50 million away from each other. That was like the number I think Fox News had that last night. Like, that type of negotiation is just impractical. So we don't want to strike. That would be brutal. We'd be so far off, it wouldn't even matter. So, sorry, that was my diatribe.
Can you go back to that again?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can you go back to that previous one?
Sure.
I thought food service was outsourced.
It is. Well, we have 5, so we kept the staff that was on board when we converted to administration, and as they retire or it's filled with the contract. But, so that's what we're down to 5.
And so the negotiation we made was that those people that were currently working with the district would stay working as a district employee, and only those people that were, only those positions that came out afterwards was being filled with the ones from the company.
And now is that the same with the custodians too?
Custodians, no,
Oh, they're not outsourced?
They're all.
Okay.
Custodians are outsourced, maintenance is in-house.
Okay.
So that really should just say maintenance.
Okay.
Any other questions?
What's the support staff non-union?
So When you look at the budget book, all the business office technology and confidential services.
And what? Confidential?
Confidential services.
So, for example, my executive assistant, is not a union person, but she's a staff person. We have, someone who handles all the IEPs for special education. They're a support staff person, but they're not in the union. Well, up until this year, our secretaries, who are administrative assistants, were unionized. They made a decision not to unionize, to no longer be unionized. That was their call, and they notified us of such.
47.
How does their salary compare to the union? I mean, are they, does the union not negotiate the
The
non-union?
non-union folks, depending on their job description and what their responsibilities are, their salaries are different. And their level.
It's not one or two.
Having worked at two
Yeah, oh yeah, that's
powerful
probably.
places.
She just said that she doesn't think that a superintendent's executive assistant is even allowed. The three positions that you must have in a district, and they cannot be the same person, is you must have a superintendent, you must have a business manager, you must have a sped director. That's by law, those are the three positions that you absolutely must
It's more
have.
teachers.
Any more questions?
Destiny, right? We got that.
I did that math wrong.
Okay, so for capital planning, I had a discussion with our, director of buildings and grounds, and we have a lot of projects that were started this current year, the end of last year, that we want to focus on making sure that they are successful. So we have the new high school stadium field was planted in the fall, and so we want to make sure that can be taken care of. We have the new track and the irrigation that goes with that behind the middle school. And then there's a lot of projects that have been started that we didn't finish. And on top of that, while we're moving from the old building to the new building, and all the things that are going to be involved with our maintenance staff, we decided that our requests this year were going to be minimal. I should have that slide. Okay. Oh yeah, we just got a Green Communities grant last week, that'll do some weatherization at Middle School North, so that's another project that we're gonna have to, focus on, because once that weatherization is done, then next year in the Green Communities grant, we are going to be looking for, HVAC, replacement. And then the flooring replacement at Middle School North is a two-phase, so we've got $70,000 this year to start the project. We'll be asking for $55,000, which it was, presented as a 2-year project. So that will be in our capital plan. So our technology leases, that is by our school committee policy, that is in our capital plan, so that's a normal, for leases. We're looking for 2 15-passenger vans, and the reason that became a priority is that the transportation for athletics is just astronomical. And a lot of the time, it's the wait time that the driver has to wait while they're at the event. So with 2 additional, with 2 additional ones, the smaller teams like basketball, tennis, golf, and, but that would reduce, and even if the coach isn't the one who drives the van, sometimes we hire other people to drive the van, it's still a lot cheaper, than having, D-Bus do it. And that's not disparaging to D-Bus, it's on our regular transit.
It's the fact of reality.
They're awesome, but this is where their money, they make up their money is the extra field trips and athletics. So that's why we're looking at that to actually be a cost saving measure. The baseball, softball groomer, again, our fields, especially at the high school where we are really learning how to do water management with our irrigation because we need to truck in the water that gets irrigated. But on the field, so again, that's where a lot of the focus is gonna be is on our fields and the baseball, softball groomer would be helping to that. We are looking at to hiring a design engineer for the high school windows. And I tried to put a picture in here, but I'm not very good at doing that. So if you look, when you drive up to the high school, you can see like a wall of windows on the second floor. And there's, I think, 63 or 64 of them, and it's just window after window. Well, all the windows are failing. And now a lot of water is coming in through them, and of course, once the water comes in, it's going into a lot of different areas like the Black Box Theater and the Black. However, our back of the envelope, what we thought the fix to that is like $250,000. But not knowing exactly what has to be done, and I didn't want to put a number in there until I had a professional tell us how much and the scope of what the repair should be. And one thing that the director of facilities begged me to put on was $50,000 is the 8th grade bathrooms and the girls' room, the boys' room that need to be covered and redone. And then there's the flooring. No, that's okay. So again, that just talks about the replacement, and then small union roof, before, 2 years ago, when they put a moratorium on the accelerated repairs, I had filed the paperwork to have, us consider to have our roof, at least the MSBA participate somewhat in the cost of that. One of the major questions they're gonna ask is, do you have the funding for your part of it? And is everybody on board with that? And I didn't feel that this year, that this was a time that we would be able to commit to that. So, I think that this is something that I think we need to continue talking with. And the part of, remember, you have a 5-year rolling average for repairs. So Groton will be part of the discussion as well, because they will be assessed part of that roofing repair. So I think this is something that we just need to keep in the forefront of talking about it for the next year. So next year, at this time, when the accelerated budgets open up again, we can file that and get that.
Did you want to say something? I was just gonna say, for the time being, that will be factored into that, but once they move over to the new Florence Road, the clock kind of starts ticking on them not being involved in that. In other words, with the 5-year rolling average.
Rolling average, it is 0 factored in.
Yes, so for FY 25, it would be 0.
Has there been any thought in the roof repair for putting on solar and getting some sort of grants through? I mean, there might be something out there that
Can
can,
definitely be part of the discussion. But originally, when we were talking about it, we, at the school district were talking about it, it was really just to repair, because it's been repaired a lot, so there's lots of patches up there, so, but to answer your question, no, we hadn't discussed that, but it doesn't mean it can't be.
there might be something out there, but if
I
you,
participate in, next year, so we do get credits on, from the solar field already.
You probably have some options.
there might be something out there that can help with the roof repair with a solar something. I don't know of anything specific, but I've
We
heard.
certainly we always look into it.
Okay.
Sorry, school committee has a contract negotiation with coaches, so any questions for us?
No.
You have to ask Ron. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, someone mentioned earlier about looking into, like, for the printing, looking into Shawshene or Neshoba or something like that, for repairs and things, has that been looked into?
So I'll jump in on that one. The only thing that happens to that is once you start doing repairs, you do need licensure to do that. And just, roofing contractors need licensing to climb the roof.
Prevailing wage.
Yeah, and you get prevailing wages and stuff, so, the printing's one thing, but once you start getting to trade specificity, it kind of like,
One thing you have to be very careful about, we have had some work done by Michelle Burdette. The athletic director used to be the principal, yeah, Michelle Burdette.
repair work.
Yes.
Well, and also, the capital plan, we had 2 sheds
Yeah.
that we had, so we actually purchased the materials and the kids from Michelle Tech built the sheds.
That's,
Okay, so, there are other things that, we're looking at doing that would maybe done on the capital plan, and you can see them listed there. But what I'm looking at is either looking for some energy efficiency funding that would take, part of those projects, for funding, and there are excess funds in prior capital projects that we did under budget, and I'm gonna bring it to the school committee to reappropriate those funds, to, some or all of these, so that the capital money is not just sitting in it, it's being used, and what that did is it reduced your capital assessment for this year. But I think that your capital is down to like 83,000.
That's the final numbers, that's something like 5 or whatever.
Well, our school committee hasn't even seen the budget yet, we'll see it Wednesday.
But
And
assuming,
if they,
because that's
if they take our,
that's much less.
yeah, if they take our, recommendation, then that would be.
Well, that's good.
Sherry, hang on one second. Joan, you have a question, or?
Yeah, I thought the windows were replaced in the high school a while back.
7 years I've been here.
No, I'll tell you, they weren't. Some were because of delamination and the panes, but this is a much more significant issue where they've got water
So
intrusion.
these were not part of that.
Yeah, they weren't. Those windows, I think, were on the first floor. I think these are on the second floor.
So we don't have a budget that we've got, kind of piecemeal here.
No, I think she's going after design and budgeting based on, those windows may be obsolete and need to do something different. So I think their approach is right, getting an engineer involved in it and coming up with a budget, a plan, so.
And repair them once, repair them right, replace them right from the get-go, rather than keep going at it. Like piecemeal is not gonna work. It's like the roof at Swallow Union, you can't keep patching, you gotta do it.
So what my question was another question. So we don't have a bottom line here on the capital plan.
We do, it was in the, I sent Jason,
So what we're going to go forward with is, to the school committee,
Oh, yeah.
is 86,734.
For Dunstable?
Yes, 382,500 for the whole thing, on the far left, and then the garage number is 295,766, and the Dunstable number is 86,734.
and I think the placeholder we originally said was 188, so it's less than half of what we.
That 100K just goes back to the plan.
In my number on Karen.
No, I can see that.
So, the question,
No, I'm good, thank you. For now.
just to tie back to what Karen raised earlier, in terms of what Jason had presented for, say, a 3-year override, what is the lock-in date for the teacher negotiations, the fair negotiations, and the healthcare, to allow us to kind of qualitatively assess how confident are we in this is the number for next year.
In terms of the teacher, let me just tell you that I've told all the senior staff that what we presented is what we will be at. So whatever it takes to do that, that's what we're going to do. So we have told them that we cannot come back with a request for $1 more. So what we have done in the a teacher's contract in terms of what we're working with them on is within that budget. And what we are working with the paraprofessionals union is within that budget. Now, the only thing, because I have control over those, and, well, the school committee, not me, the school committee has control, that's the thing. Because all budget really has to do with the school committee. So, but we tell them what's in the budget, and they negotiate with the two unions. The thing we don't have as much control over is health insurance, right?
Is that annual? Is that annual?
Yes. But we have also told senior staff that if we were to get, for some reason, a real, significant increase in health insurance that we have planned for, that we're going to be talking about moving and other things in the budget in order to incorporate that. But the tightness of that is such that the question has been raised is, will we be able to, we can meet our obligations to teachers in negotiation, which is in the budget. If their request, I'm not saying it is, because I can't tell you what's going on in negotiations right now, even if I wanted to. If their request is larger than what we have in negotiations, then the school committee has to make the decision whether to agree to that request and then cut someplace else, or not agree to that request. Those are the two choices.
So my budget right now, I have the projected increases over the 3 years as you've described. And then I have, I think it's $188,000 for 25 and in 26, 27. That's what I'm carrying right now.
Well,
So, no,
my plan was always to try to get the assessments pretty level so that for planning purposes, both towns will always kind of know what, so we manage what projects we do based on how they fit into the budget. But, so I would expect that we were gonna pop back up in the 188 range in 26 and 27.
So the decrease you saw this year, the decrease is only for this year.
I understand.
I mean,
And because I can use, or hopefully I can use the excess funds that are in that capital revolving.
I should say that the cherry sheets came out, I want to be clear, and that the ability to withhold within this, based on some other changes that happened, was because the cherry sheets came out to our favor. So we got a little more revenue from the cherry sheets in some areas than we expected, a little less in some other areas, expenses that are less in some areas, but basically the cherry sheets, we sold them at $30 a student, okay, and it was for chapter 7. That's all about. But there were other areas that we got some additional money, shared, and so I have some questions about that. I guess I just want to be cautious that I don't want people to think that if the override passes, that there will have to be reductions some places. Because if we make a commitment to the 3-year plan, and then local minimum contribution changes, then the school committee has to make the decision whether to, and cherry sheets aren't in our favor, the school committee's gonna have to make the decision to where to make those reductions.
Yeah, I think we're all on that same page.
I'm just
agree.
being clear,
No,
because
I
I think that there's an expectation on some parts that if the override passes, that there will never be any reductions, and I kind of don't want that to be mistaken impression.
So, you started off with sort of saying it as, you know, kind of where I started my conversation with this, to begin with, is how do we get to a point where we're not looking for another override in 3 years? And right now, what we're going out there to say is, thank you, you know, if we pass the override, thank you for the next 3 years, but we're coming right back at you because, with another override, because over the last 3 years, we've increased almost 30%.
Well, I think, I'm not going to answer the 30%, this lady with the numbers on, but I will say that we've already, I think we've touched upon, let me emphasize, that 80% of the budget is salaries and insurance. Because of the steps and lanes, and because of the market corrections that we see out there right now, I actually would be disingenuous if I told you that in 3 years, we would maybe not be that 10% less. Because Sherry has already described what the increases are based on steps and lanes. And what the increase, we've only talked about one COLA. It doesn't line up.
And another big factor is $11 million is our chapter 70 money. And when it only goes up 67,500 in a year, that barely makes a dent in any of the increases that we have. So it's really a product of the way that our salaries compound with the steps, lanes, COLA. There's always gonna be more than 2.5%. And even if our budget only went up 2.5%, our revenue sources don't go up 2.5%. The state, that their revenue increase to us was 0.6%. So I hear what you're saying, Jake, and there's no way to make magic numbers. It's the way that the budget grows for salaries is not realistic to 2.5%.
It's always a deficit equation,
That's correct.
no matter what. Like, I think we have to, you have to accept it, and then we can spend as much time as we want trying to get the state of Massachusetts to change to 2.5%. That will take years. Like, Skylar said the same thing.
We're gonna have a 7.5% increase in our revenue and a 23.5% increase in cost from the school.
Yeah.
We can't bridge that gap.
It doesn't
It's
work.
impossible.
Right.
And unfortunately, the naysayers, because I'm in full support, I want this to proceed forward.
Mm-hmm.
The reason our property values are what they are, the reason why everyone wants to come and live and ride in Dunstable is because our school district is what it is. I want this to proceed forward, there's no question about it. But the fact of the matter is that someone can shoot so many holes in this in 2 seconds, that's what, the negative side of this argument is so large. And when we put numbers up there, it is challenging to sit there and say, we're trying the best we can, but we're gonna increase our budget by 30% over the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Understanding you're gonna pay another $2 million in taxes, plus you're gonna increase your percentage another 7.5%. It's like, you're looking at people saying, we're just gonna keep coming after you. Like, if you're not gonna be there at the end of in year 3, there is no year 4, this is gonna happen. We're not gonna have a carryover year. We're not gonna have something to continue forward. Even if we built a mall out here, we wouldn't be able to support that level of increasing.
Very few communities can without, that's.
Very few communities do.
Well,
That's the
one
part
of
that,
the
like,
killers here is the chapter 70 formula, because a lot of communities see chapter 70, they see much higher increases annually in chapter 70, which helps.
We participated in the Student Opportunity Act. So when we met with the Lieutenant Governor, when I met with the State Auditor, one of the things that they said was so difficult to get any movement on chapter 70 is because the legislature already passed the Student Opportunity Act. The unfortunate part is that we got less than $40,000 for the Student Opportunity Act, where Drake got $6 million. So when
Who got 6 million?
I believe the Drake superintendent told me like $6 million. So I will tell you though, that we are not the only community that's looking, Westford is looking at a $6 million override. North Middlesex is looking at an override that is in the multiple millions.
Drake is looking for an override too, even with that money.
Actually, Westford's looking for an $8 million override, so as much money as they have, they're looking for an $8 million override. I think if you watched the news last night, you saw the mayor say that what they're being asked to do would cause them to lay off 70 people in the school department, as well as police and fire.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't need to say that, well, your pain is any less. The pain is real. But unless you can reduce the revenues or increase the increase the revenue, you're not going to balance out with the structure that steps and lanes, which is how teachers are paid in the state of Massachusetts. Teachers and actually some degree paraprofessionals, they have lanes. No, they have steps, but they don't have lanes. But some districts, they do have lanes. We don't have lanes, we just have steps. So because of that, that amount of money, because that's such a large percentage of budget, is continuing to raise. unless the revenue runs along with that.
So wouldn't it behoove the teachers union to look at what's happening and realize that like, what's going on here, that eventually you get to a point where you're gonna have so many steps, I'm gonna say, bye, we'll see you later, we'll take the next college graduate. Because you've gotten too expensive for our district.
I don't know that I can lay someone off or fire them because their salary is too high. I can lay the number, the only.
Seniority comes into
Yeah, they
play.
have
So the most
seniority.
expensive person's always left behind.
No, when you
So it's-
you lay off
If you
the
do a
less
raise,
the
you're
lowest
gonna lay
one,
off
yeah.
the
less
lower piece,
Yeah.
not the higher.
they just bump into.
It's a puzzle for equation. It's almost,
Is there tenure still?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, they'll never
It's all
survive.
professional status, but it's the same
They've
thing.
created a box that we can't get out of.
So,
So
So why don't you just get?
when it comes to chapter 70 funding, we can't sue the state, right?
you get
You
your
cannot
school.
sue the state, to my knowledge,
You're better off
but I'm
closing
an attorney, I have many
Literally.
qualities.
Well, yeah, but I don't, either am I, but I have been told by, not an attorney, but I've been told by other people that you can't. And that to me is,
I
I
could
don't
actually
understand
talk
it.
about
Could we do it?
You can't, what was your question now?
Sue the state,
Oh,
I think,
unfunded mandates.
I think the way to make
Without a
change
shot.
is to band together with the districts who are feeling the same pain and seeing the similar type of increases in chapter 70 annually that are just not sufficient, and trying to advocate in that way, or at least educate on what our real experience on the ground is.
I mean, I've worked with the superintendent's organization to try to get that. The unfortunate part is the SOA really addressed the urban districts and then what we call the gateway districts, so like Lowell. I sit on the board of the Massachusetts Association of Regional School Districts, and at least half of those districts are being quote unquote health harmless, which means they get $30 a student extra in one year's next.
The other thing is, so we have Senator Kennedy on our district, and
Yes.
who does Groton have now?
Scarsdale.
No, there's another one.
Cronin,
Is that who it is?
maybe. Cronin, I think it's Cronin.
Because we have two,
and the other half of the
Yeah.
district?
yeah, because we now have two,
Don't quote
There are
me.
two in
yeah,
Groton.
which kind of gives us a little more power in the state house, right? Because we have two people advocating for the district as opposed to just one.
Our discussions with the state legislatures have, again, come down to the fact that they passed the student opportunity act. And many districts got assistance from that, but we did not.
The problem comes into that when we look at our district, we are we're the wealthier community of our district.
According to the Boston Globe, one of the top 50 wealthiest systems.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the median incomes, like it's,
I'm just telling you.
Yeah, that's what I-
don't make
it's
it- I don't
stats.
make that.
like.
No, I know, but when you look at the communities where, in the same district with, Kennedy, we're not as, I would imagine, not speaking for, not the biggest concern, right?
Right. Joni, you have a question?
Can't be a surprise.
So if the override is voted down, and I'm not saying that we voted down.
Sure.
Because, we actually need the best thing, in my opinion, would be that Dunstable would pass it and Groton would vote it down. Okay, and now you're saying that you have no choice but to eliminate, what was it, 31 jobs? Or is this just, does the school committee go back to the drawing board and say, well, we'll cut this much?
Well, so the way it goes is the school committee, if Dunstable was to pass it and Groton was not, the school committee could make a decision to call for a super town meeting, and they could bring the two committees together. They don't have to do that, that's an option for them. If Dunstable was to pass it and Groton was not, and the school committee made a decision not to do that, they have to cut approximately $3.4 million from the budget. When 80% of the budget is salaries and benefits, it's pretty hard to cut that much money from the budget without having to lay people off. Is it 30? Could be 27?
So you know, going back and,
The last time they passed an override
you
was
know,
2003.
rethinking the numbers.
The last time Ron passed an override for the school
You're
was
saying that's not.
We've already done that, a significant amount. I'm just not, because you can find ourselves a couple of available information. Their local minimum contribution changed, and we went back and looked at the budget over and over again, and we were able to get some more money from the cherry sheets and some balance and things out. So your assessment is staying to what we committed to 3 months ago. We've done, I guess that's my long way of saying yes, we've already done that.
So you're saying you would rather, I just want, do you have that option? Or are you saying that, you know, to go back and look at it and see if you could, you know, make some more cuts if you know, if it gets voted down, or would you just throw up your hand and say, you know?
I would never do that. Every person that works for this district is valued. But in the end, the school committee makes the decision. The administration, on February 14th, we're going to present them with a number of scenarios that they would choose from if the override does not pass. Now, there's not going to be any scenario in there in which there will not be somebody else. It's just way too much money. But they could, for example, use every dollar of E&D. Now that runs a risk. If a boiler goes, if an elevator goes, the special education student comes into the district that needs to go to a really expensive out-of-district placement, and we use every dollar of E&D, and we're going to have to do something that we've never had to do, which is to make possibly in the middle of the school year layoffs, which we never had to do that in 7 years I've been. So we would always go back and look at it, but again, either expenses have to go down or revenue has to go up. The only way we can get the revenue to go up, we have control over right now, is E&D and kindergarten fees. We could get rid of athletics. That would bring some money in, but half of athletics is paid for by the operational budget. We could increase, these are all things that we will bring to the school committee. We could increase athletic fees. People that, Sherry has been working on the budget book, so I haven't asked her this question, but there is a way to have bus fees for those students that are under 1.5 miles. I don't believe we get reimbursement for the cost of those students, so we could ask for bus fees. That says that anybody who's riding a bus that's under 1.5 miles would have to pay a bus fee. I think that we'd probably find that more students in Dunstable would be effective than students in Groton, because the ones that live close to downtown and sidewalks and all that. So those are some of the things that we will look at. But $3.3 million is a lot of money, and there's no way to come up with that money without somewhere else. And it would be across all departments: administration, central office, admin assistants, technology, maintenance, and staff, and teachers.
So in a situation like that, you said earlier that I'm gonna get confused. You said earlier that you couldn't just, you know, use salary to, you know, lay people off.
No, we're not just take the highest paid people.
But in a case like this, you can just say, you know, you can just pick and choose and whatever, because it's not based on salary.
No, it's based on seniority.
So we last in, first out.
Last and first.
So you'd have to fire more
Yes.
people in order to.
First thing.
Yeah.
So it's not based
So
on
nice,
salary, it's
right?
based on.
You can lay off 5
seniority.
people, but you have to lay off 10 because the fact the way the union negotiated. It's a great way to do it.
One last question.
Sure.
The bottom line, okay? Last year, it was a little over 50 million, pardon me, yeah, 50 million. What is it gonna be this year? You have that information?
Yeah, that was it.
Actually, our budget book just got posted online tonight. So we have a public hearing on Wednesday, so that, we just did a thing on our website too. Once you get our website scrolled, unfortunately it's at the bottom, but there's a button that says budget book, so you can push that and you don't have to look for it. It'll be right there.
That's the 50.
That, yeah.
50 million is for this year.
That's the operating without tax. So it's 50.
760.
Yeah,
62, okay. Okay, I think that's it for now, thank you.
Perfect.
So I don't know if anyone's been looking at the news lately, but the town of Plymouth, like many other communities that you mentioned, is also having an issue. And I don't know what the legalities of doing something similar here, but what they did, more so for senior and disabled, was they had, people could donate to offset taxes for them. I would be interested, so I think everyone can agree that no one wants that school system. I may not agree with some of the things about funding, but no one wants that school system or to go, or to be degraded. However, so many parents have, concerned, they want the great school system for their kids. I would be interested to see if we could do something similar where parents could donate. And if they can donate up to a certain point, someone like me would have no issue voting for override to do the balance of that. But if parents are not willing to donate for that extra for their children to have a good school system, why would someone like me be asked to pass it over?
They would have to commit to it every year, though.
Or for 3 years at least. But I'm just saying, I don't know what the legalities are, I'm not a lawyer either.
Are they doing that in Plymouth? Are you saying that town of Plymouth is doing that now?
They set up a donation program that anyone in town can donate to offset senior and disabled people's taxes. It's basically a general fund. So why couldn't we ask parents in town, okay, so what is it, $900,000 we have to come up with? If parents can raise $400 or $500, then someone like me is gonna say, okay, if I raise $400, I'm all set, well, let's pass it over. But if parents aren't willing to do that, why should I?
You take pledges, Jason?
So they actually, private schools do that. They call it like the Captain's Club. I mean,
There's nothing wrong with taking pledges.
This will sound a little insensitive, but.
So if I
really
see
influential
parents
families, and they fix the private schools.
why would I do that? What was that?
I'm not trying to be a jerk, but.
I agree.
Yeah,
This doesn't solve necessarily something coming, but if we have about ballpark for 300 staff employees in the school district.
375.
We use 300 just for simple. And let's assume it's about 30 years of, employment, right? So you assume about 10 people come on, 10 people come off through retirement.
Yeah, ballpark, yeah.
Is there any opportunity to, instead of backfilling, as those 10 people, whoever retires, to absorb some of that? I'm sure it's not gonna work.
We did that, we did that last year, for attrition. Right now, that would be we would have to cut services in order to do that. We had to do that last year, by the way. Okay, last year there are courses that we offered at the high school that we're not offering any longer. Because those people retired, we're not offering those courses anymore. We do look at the fact that, when someone retires, they're probably in the upper part of the salary grid, and when they, for a second grade teacher, as I said, a second grade teacher, I'm going to tell a principal, most teachers come in with masters, okay, or they get it within their first year. So we say M1, that's how we call a beginning teacher. So we say, you're looking for a second grade teacher, you should look at M1. If we're looking for an ELL teacher, there's not a ton of them coming out of school. So we're probably going to be finding someone that wants to come work at Groton out of school because they like that better than the district they're in. Or it's closer to home. They were driving for whatever reason. It's going to be tough to get that person for something less than M5. So we've already factored in the people that are retiring and based on their position, what we think we're going to get somebody for. But we did factor that in.
I guess I'm just gonna ask one question rather. I know this budget proposal has been interesting to learn about. For our select board meeting, joint meeting purposes here, we're supposed to be meeting with advisory, right? Just to throw something back to our own audience here. Keep us on that.
I'm happy to
proper
answer any question. Anybody can answer.
Hang on a second.
And I'll answer any questions.
Mrs. Simmons?
I just noticed it says without debt. This year's budget is about 50,700,000. How much is it with the debt?
It's just over 51 million.
Just over 50?
Yeah, because our debt schedule is almost gone, so it's only, middle school projects that are still on there.
All right, anybody else with any questions? Dr. Laura, you guys all through with your
Yeah, we're all set.
last slide?
Yeah, we're all set. Thank you. And again, anybody who would like to,
Congrats on your retirement.
I'm sorry?
Congrats on your retirement.
Thank you very much. I just put out some employment, I'm not
Yeah,
really
there
sure
you go.
what I wanted to do.
We're looking for donations.
My husband, when I go home, I want that federal, but then again, we are senior citizens, so I'm gonna.
Thank you for the time, appreciate it.
Jason, is there anything you want to add to this? No.
Do you really want to hear me?
No.
I think we've heard enough. I mean, all I'll say is this. We've gone through, Jake, you've been directly involved in it. We've had meeting after meeting with the school district and the town of Groton. We've tried to kind of do our best to get to a number. It's a large number, there's no question about it. And what the result is gonna be at the end of 3 years, let's face it, I mean, I think we need to work over the next 3 years to really do our best to reduce it, but it's gonna be hard to sustain in year 4.
So we need economic development quickly so that it's taxable by the time this is done.
It's gotta be like it's not just gonna be economic
Right,
development.
no, I agree. It
because
has to be both sides.
It's impossible, so it's gotta be like just a variety of efforts to raise revenue and to reduce costs. And to be honest, I mean, I talked to a lot of you individually about this, like, on the town side, which we're really trying, I mean, we're regionalizing every single thing we can. And the net savings is a blip on the radar. It's not
Not a big enough number.
it's not moving the needle. Like, we're saving 15,000 in the town clerk's office. I'm really happy that we did all that work to regionalize to save 15,000. It's not moving the needle on the overall deficit though. And that's like trust me, it gets frustrating on my end too, because it just isn't gonna, a lot of the efforts.
Budget dust.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the efforts we're doing, which is really a lot of work.
However.
Yeah.
It's gold dust.
Gold dust, yeah.
So I think, in terms of talking about.
But I think to that point is it makes this sale of this override that much more difficult, right? Is it the energy, and effort that's being put in to save that, we're not seeing that
And
same
it's not
coming back.
solving the problem.
It's not solving the problem, it's not even closing the gap, and I believe we wholeheartedly appreciate all the hard work and effort. And when you look at those charts and graphs, you see government spending going down on our end, and then, this gigantic increase on the other side. It only leads to, trying to sell this, I think, is based upon their finalized numbers, has gotten harder as the negotiations have continued. We started off, the first meeting we went to was that they were gonna look at 6.67% increase year over year, and they had a flat number across. And now we're at, what, 11.8 and like.
11, 10, 8.15.
Yeah. I mean, you just, it's, at least at 6, we're kind of like, okay, all right, maybe we can make something up because you're at 18 versus 7 3/4 that we're coming up, and maybe you could get to somewhere, right? But now we're at the point of, that it's challenging to sit there and say that this is going to be something that is going to be successful. And
it's only going to be successful in the short term.
Mhm.
That's it. It is. But if you follow some of the news in the last few weeks, the state is absolutely taking a look at Prop 2.5. And I listened to John Kelleher do an editorial yesterday where he said the lid's going to have to come off. And it goes back to what she said, the number of towns that need overrides. And I think they gave us authorization to raise motor vehicle excess taxes by 5%.
They did, but even that for us, it's $30,000.
Yeah.
It's 30,000. Now, look, should we do it? Do we need to look at it? Yes, but it's $30,000. That's how much it's gonna raise.
So I fully agree with the 3-year approach. it buys time for the new superintendent to come in, assess, make a plan, and then execute on that plan to help lower that number. But you saw historically, it was always over 2.5%, except for 1 year. And that was before the CPI was wherever it's 5-6% now. There's no way to close that gap without taking a close look at what the services are offered, et cetera, on the school side. Meanwhile, what we can do is try to fast track economic development. We need the revenue side, we need to do it quickly so that we have the taxable income when that 3-year override terminates.
So when you say economic development, what are you thinking of?
So I'm thinking of at least one of the, I didn't attend, on last Wednesday for the Brattleboro, the town halls.
Yeah, the 40B.
That's
Yeah.
one opportunity, right? We need probably 80 to 100 million of assessed value of the existing tax rate. That would get us there over maybe 4 years.
That doesn't
But that's
have,
just,
if 156 unit gets passed, if.
sure.
If-
I'm just saying, but that's
If
just.
every
that's
one
just-
gets built and filled, it's 10 years before that would be done.
Sure.
It's at minimum a
If,
7-year
that's
project.
if.
What I would
And they may find
emphasize-
that they may not have a market for that many units, and
Oh,
they
it'll
may
be
not build
fixed.
them.
It'll be fixed, absolutely.
There may be children that are going to be attending the schools or increasing.
Sure.
Yeah, there's no doubt that some income from that would absolutely help, no doubt.
But that's,
That's not our saving grace.
I agree. It's a step in the right direction.
It is.
And I think if we can help expedite economic development like that, then we as a collective group have done our job to help taxpayers not bear the brunt of the increases from the inevitable increases from the school.
So
But I
beyond,
just want to let me just say this about all that, all right? This is a small town, and there's only so much development, and, the Lieutenant Doven sat right in this chair, and she said to us, you guys gotta figure out a way to grow, and she phrased it, grow or die, right? That's what she said. Those were her words.
Very blunt.
And so, in terms, the town's 27 square miles, we don't, 17, I'm sorry, I was thinking something. Kennybunk is 27. But in terms of, there's only so much you're gonna get out of it. And so the only remedy to it is going to be like 41 Lowell, which that project, you'll never see another one like that in this town. And it has the potential to put a lot of money in a short, in 7 to 10 years, but you gotta look at that. And, I don't know, I truly don't know if there's any one magic answer to all of this. And, it goes back to what he said about, the numbers just getting out of control, and you gotta cap it. It's gonna have to be, from our standpoint, it's gonna have to be a number of different scenarios that come together to make it right for us. And 41 Lowell is certainly in the cards, but.
Also, the point about the whole, besides children being out of the school system, has anyone talked about, you're adding element of housing. You're gonna have to add more EMT services, fire services, if you're adding more seniors.
Sure.
And there's gonna be an expense for the town for that too. So yes, there may be additional revenue, but there's also gonna be additional expense.
At the last town meeting, engaged, did have some estimates. Now, whether they're, accurate or not, I don't know if they've had the opportunity to, speak with you and get that.
I kind of read those numbers. The number of calls that we would have to increase there would not be.
Yeah, it's all based on like norms and practices and performance studies.
so you're saying that project would have no impact on your department?
We're certainly gonna have calls there, but we're not gonna have so many calls there that we won't be able to handle our current staffing.
But please, what about EMT services?
the fire said the same thing. They said what they're planning for is pretty accurate.
That project doesn't really.
No, but that's an honest assessment though.
It's
Like,
true, yeah. We're so far behind with fire.
Seriously, I mean, we can't take another reduction. If there's gonna be a point in time where you call and somebody doesn't come and help you, I mean, that's just pretty much where we're going.
But if you're already behind, and you're adding more elderly, it's a problem.
It's not that they're not, it's not necessarily.
They're not gonna break the bank.
We had our review meeting last week and the chief, I'm gonna do my best to quote you, but what he essentially said was he wishes that people were as concerned about public safety townwide as they are, as it relates to this one project, because we'd be in a much better situation. The level of calls we're gonna get related to this project, there are other reasons that people have that they may be for or against it. It's not public safety. As the chief said at our review meeting, they're gonna be some of the safest buildings in this town, because they're gonna be the larger buildings at least. They're gonna be fully sprinkled. They're gonna be code compliant.
You'd be better off leaving your house and going to the over there.
So
I agree with you. Actually.
I mean, as it is.
There are many reasons. It's not public safety.
I mean, they only have 2 per diems because it's essentially artificially staffed.
Well,
It's not in our budget to be covering the 2 per diems that we have.
And last year, we lost even more, we had potential to lose more people because
Right.
people don't want to work by themselves. So we had a bunch of people take a step back after we talked about recruitment and retention. And I came here, people were like, what are you gonna do for recruitment and retention? Well, at this point, it's like, what are you gonna do? Because I brought in, what did we bring in, like 15 more people in the last year? We only did all the fire department.
Yeah.
Well, when you go ahead and start cutting stuff, people go, well, I'm not sticking around for this.
Right.
So I mean, this is what people, let's do what I'm gonna do. What we're doing it, right? We need people to help at this point.
So it's more the override that's gonna have an impact on the fire department, police department than this project will, honestly.
So
So can we look into the legalities of doing something similar to Plymouth?
We can certainly ask those questions.
We can certainly set up, if the select board wants to set up a donation fund to accept donations to offset tax increases for people, as long as we set up the account and set up like a legitimate criteria that will be used in order to make those decisions, I don't see any reason why we can't do it, but I'll reach out to Plymouth and find out more.
We're a regional school district though, so we just gotta be careful because we can't give them more than we.
No,
more
but
than-
we might be able to make that work, but, and to the chief's point, that fire department has a second per diem in there because someone in the town came forward and wrote a check. And so to answer your question more specifically, yeah, it's absolutely viable and it's probably worthy of an exploration to figure out how to make it all work. But we took that money, there was some trepidation here about accepting a donation of that size. We've never done it, we've never had anybody do it, and we've never asked. So it's viable and it needs consideration.
So
Thank you.
I think from that, the biggest part that, at least when we were talking at our last meeting, the reason why I wanted to sort of sit together to review some things, obviously to go over the override in general. But I think the next side to that override in general, first vote here, the intention of this was supposed to have 2 bites of the apple, right? One special town meeting, then the annual town meeting. If we were not successful at the first one.
That's right.
So the special town meeting, I agree with the way that we have put together the budget at that we're at. And I think I speak for everyone here. We sort of all on board with the way we need to present forward here. The other topic that's come up at our meeting, and I would like to see if this is something that we would also entertain, is the second bite at the apple, is to allow the school override to stand alone, cover our costs, level fund the school district, and that will cover all of our municipal needs, reinstate a police officer, fully fund the fire department as we need to be able to cover our municipal needs, and level fund the school the next year. And allow their override to stand on its own at annual town meeting.
And I think we should do that first. I think we should fund the town. I think we've cut the funding for the town for the last few years to keep up with the schools. And I think we should just put this all on the feet of the school.
What are the pros and cons of doing it either way. Did you have?
So I think initially the rationale we had was that we're coming into this with an agreement. The first time ever, right, we've had this sort of like this multidisciplinary, multi-group or board, meetings. We sat down and had some sort of discussions together to try to come up with a budget and a plan moving forward. Now, I will say, as I had mentioned to the school district as we started here, was that our intention was to whittle down the increase to the point where by that end of the third year, going into the fourth year, that we're now at something that we could carry over, something that is within the 3 to 4% range, something that's more reasonable or manageable for our budget. Obviously, that didn't come home entirely, but I still feel as if we've gotten together, and I think that group intends to continue to meet. And based upon that, and we may have some positive growth, we may have some revenue growth in our own town, they may have some revenue growth on their side. We might be able to do something else, but at least having those meetings and having the budget discussion together, I think has created something. So I would at least like to take at least myself personally, I won't speak for everybody here, but take the first bite of that apple and say that, yes, we agree, we're coming together. We're sharing in our new revenue, we're sharing in the deficit of the budget and how we present this budget forward. I think the other side of that is that saying that, like, we tried, it failed. We're not going to continue to accept this additional cost and this additional money, but we have our own house to take care of. We have our own townspeople that should be taking care of us accordingly. They should be able to call for emergency services and receive emergency services. And the level to which, as I said earlier, we're at a 30% increase over the next 3 years, even saying that our hands up, like we got nothing left, we have to go for an override. They're still looking for another 30% over the next 3 years, which still gets to the point of, like, it's almost like they're not getting it. And I get, we can utilize everything else that's going around us socially, be able to say this town, that town, everyone's going after it. That's fine, but we've kind of been setting the trend with increases year over year as it's gone, and we're able to cover over our wounds, not too dissimilar to what we've been doing, but we've been using our, excess and deficiency funds, very similar, our free cash, just like they have, right? But we've gotten to the point where now we can no longer, sustain that use of those funds, and we can't do this anymore. We have to find a way to make this work. And like I said, I think the pro side of it is we're coming into this together for the initial override. We're setting a standard here of the new way we're going to do things. We're going to reduce with that override, reduce our reliance on free cash. We're going to do things together cooperatively. I think the other side of it is the downside is that we're, for the initial override, the special town request, we're saying we're doing things cooperatively. The downside is that we're putting other things in with our own municipal budgets at risk. I think when it comes to the annual town meeting and potentially switching the budgetary request, is that the pro side is, that's it, we're taking care of our own house. We're making sure our people are taken care of. And then, we're level funding. It's not like we're, zeroing out the budget for the school district. We're just saying that, our town didn't have an appetite for an increase and going from there. Now, obviously that has its drawbacks. If Groton passes with their first bite of the apple, we put ourselves are in a very precarious position. But if they do not pass and we do not pass, I think it puts the school district in a very precarious position to say that both member communities have said, this isn't going to fly, and maybe more people come out for the second vote. And and that's where I think that we just lay it out as, hey, we heard you, right? We listened to you at the special town meeting, and you said you don't want to do this. Well, let's take care of our own house. We'll pass a budget that covers our own house and let you decide if you want to continue with the schools or not.
No, I hate the thought of the town being decimated for one line item in our budget. I really do. One thing that sort of makes me nervous about it is I feel the town may be more inclined to not pass an override for school only as a way for them to make a point to the school. If you join them together, then it's all tied together, and you have to consider the school and the services of the town together. It's not like an a la carte where you can maybe
But I look at these two guys sitting behind us, right?
Yeah.
They've had to make the cuts that we've told them to make.
Oh, I know, and I'm trying to think of the
And
best way to
the
get it to
schools-
happen.
The schools over the last few years have not. They've literally stolen money from other pots because they didn't want to make those hard choices. And they continue to do that. And now they have to go back and they've got to do some refunding of the D&D. Not to mention the fact that kindergarten thing, which is a thorn in my side. And I have kids in the school. I mean, it just floors me that they have to make the hard choices and make decisions and cut people, and the school doesn't do it. And now that they don't do it, they need a 7% increase.
Yeah.
That's because they didn't do what they were supposed to do 3 years ago. So, I mean, that's why when I say we should go in there and like, we should go in there and like mirror the issue, no, the issue is the schools, period.
Yeah.
And so let people decide how they want to move forward, if they want to fund schools or not. The problem isn't town spending, it's not.
No, it's absolutely not the town
It's
spending.
not.
It is, and we know that very well. It is not the town spending, and we are pared down as low as we can.
Yeah, so I felt similar to what you both expressed a while back. Like, I want it to just be a school vote. I don't quite grasp how to best do the timing of that, because I think in general, the vote for the police and fire and the highway and a couple other things was really close last year. And it was really unfortunate. And Leah said we were lucky a local family was willing to help. I'll try to offset some of the police and some of the fire per diem. And we were lucky. We were lucky that shook out like that. And I'm going to look at Jason. I don't quite know how you time out just a school override per se. Like, is that like, so maybe I should need to say this out loud to him, so I'm slow and I need to understand it. You want to do the annual town meeting where we vote police and fire?
No, he's saying the other way, did at our special town meeting to do it as one.
Yes.
And if it fails.
Which is what Groton's doing.
Yeah,
That's right.
and then at the second one, at this point, if that fails,
The second
the people
override.
have spoken and therefore
The second
we're
override.
covering the town in the override as a
That's it.
school only.
We're covering our costs for our police force, for our fire department. We're covering the cost that we had in our budget before we lost them.
And that would be at the annual town meeting, the second go at
So
it,
then the
if it
schools would
fails.
stand alone on the second bite of the apple.
I see that reasoning.
Can you actually make it 2 separate questions? So say that we need, I'm just making up numbers here, $80,000 for the override, to fund municipal stuff, and then whatever for the school. Can you make it 2 separate questions? Because that would make a difference to me.
You can, the problem is that if Groton passes it and we don't pass it for the schools, we're screwed.
Yes.
Because we are then forced to fund the schools at
Without money
at
to
the
pay for it.
22% without the override.
Right. So they shoot down
So-
both
It goes out
overrides.
of the entire town,
Forget it.
everything else.
Now, if we do that and tell them, no, we're not doing it, then they can call a super town meeting. And the fact that we already know that they passed it once, they'll have a super town meeting and then make us pass it. And then Jason is out of a job.
And he's out of a job, and he's out of a
Yeah.
job.
And the roads, the roads. are
She's
not
out of a
gonna apply.
job, and they're done, and he's out of a job. Yeah.
It really is.
And then what will happen is the town will end up in receivership.
We'll just have the knee on the net, don't they?
No, you bet. Joan?
I spoke to Sherry here, before she left, and I was under the impression that the current numbers for Dunstable and for Groton were 11% increase and 14% increase. She tells me that, no, the increase for Groton is now 10%. Because, whatever, and it's our fault. It's our fault because they had, they had to lower a number or whatever.
I asked them to stick with our number, basically,
Yeah,
and they did.
so I'm just concerned about that because I'm hoping that we will have the good sense to support this override and that the town of Groton will have good sense to vote it in. Because the only way these people are going to, come into the real world is if they have to live here, unfortunately.
Well, the last time Groton passed an override to the schools was 2003.
Right.
Every other time since then, they've failed.
So I don't know, I'm hoping that we can still count on that, but that was a long time ago.
We're in a box, because people want, however you define schools, and we're seeing it all over the news now and all these different school districts, people want adequate, and whatever your version of adequate schools, to each their own. I don't have anyone in the school system, so I don't know. But even if a town like Plymouth, which is, I believe, I'm just speaking off very basic knowledge here, is middle of the road, less than middle of the road school system, is going through this type of iteration and this experience. The chickens have come home to roost because the wage gap that teachers and educators feel has become a hot topic in their negotiation. If they're looking at 6% a year for, let's say, an average overall income increase, so should our police, so should our fire, so should our employees here, because the cost of living in Massachusetts has gone through the roof. And we've sort of sat by idly to let that roll because the schools are so good and our kids get such great jobs. It is quicksand. It is a box that you can't get out of. And that's just what it's gonna be. And I hear you on donations and stuff like that, and this sounds really insensitive, so forgive me everyone for saying this, but those that are really affluent end up sending their children to private schools.
I think if you look around, you'll see that that's not the case.
Having worked in the local private schools, I can respectfully disagree.
Just one thing to note, just a side note, I would actually have seen other people in this town, they're not sending their kids to private schools. They're sending them to the public school because we have such a good school system, and they're buying something, which is frustrating to see. So that's why I want to see where their money, put their money where their mouth is. But my note was, everyone keeps talking about increasing revenue. Plymouth has a ton of revenue, and they're having issues.
Yes,
So
Groton has actually pretty good revenue, Westford has pretty good revenue streams, it's the cost of.
They all need overrides.
It's the cost of
Westford
education.
looking for a $6 million override.
Yeah, I don't know what your check on the cost of education is. Someone could run for school committee and you can be the thorn in the side of the school committee to help speak up and advocate for the other side.
Yeah, but
They haven't changed their insurance rate.
But it's like you were saying, I mean, that rate of 6% salary increases
Yeah.
is 80% of the budget.
Right.
And that is something that is not controllable without making cuts to.
Well, you have to be our two school committee members left for tonight's meeting to go speak at the negotiation.
Yeah.
That's where you actually set some of those policies.
Right. But the negotiations that are passing are, without a strike or whatever, this seems to be kind of the current.
It's the market strike.
We have the best benefits in the market basket.
Oh, I know.
Did you notice that?
We have
It's very good benefits.
Yeah. Better than what
some of the
universities are paying.
Okay.
So I guess largely that was the rationale. I think we all kind of agree to the number. I think we agree to the understanding. My largest thing was how, obviously we have the timing sort of laid out with that, but we'd have to, if we were to present a secondary budget for annual, we'd have to have another calendar per se to follow alongside that. It's just something to consider. Obviously, we can meet, talk about it another point in time, but I think like I said, I think it starts off by presenting that we are in agreement, trying to work together, trying to push forward, that both member communities need this on all levels. We need some sort of an override.
It's a more friendly approach, and we don't
Absolutely.
kick it off in an adversarial way.
Now, granted, if the first one comes off,
Well,
that
then
Groton passes and we
gloves are
don't,
off,
then
right?
we've got to look at this completely different
Yeah.
anyways, right? Because, at that point in time, we'll be screaming at these meetings saying we have to pass this or else we're gonna be.
Yeah.
So
We'll
Jason,
We're doomed.
What
Yeah.
did the lieutenant governor say? Grow or
Yeah,
die?
grow or
Well, we're
die.
gonna die.
so
You know,
Jason,
that's-
if we pass it and they don't, legally, what happens?
We can afford to pay. They
Yeah.
can't. Yeah.
The
We,
school
we
committee
can,
might,
we can bank that money, right?
Correct.
We don't
Well, we-
have to, we don't have to give it back to them?
we
To the
don't,
people?
That's true.
so we don't have to,
Yes.
so if they vote, if we vote to approve the override.
Yep.
That doesn't mean we have to tax up to that limit.
Mhm.
So we can tax up to the limit that ends up being a budget, but we'll have levy capacity, which wouldn't be the worst thing either. So that when, budget increases go over what's affordable, we'll have a little capacity in our levy to inch up to that.
But that first year, you would have actually, it's not the first year, the second year, right? We would have an increased amount of free cash, because the first year would be set on a budget of that higher dollar value. We wouldn't be able to re-budget after that.
You could raise to the approved amount, but you would not have to raise to the approved amount.
But if you come to every single board of selectmen meeting, like Erica and the Simmons, then we don't have to increase theirs, we'll increase everybody else's. Can we do that?
Yeah, that's about right.
You have a boss, you guys are a boss.
You could put some in stabilization, like there would be a strategy that you could
Yes.
use, like
Yeah,
that would be
sure.
the
Yeah.
proper thing to do would be to stabilize.
You got
All
that
free
right.
cash
Yeah.
usage,
It'd be a nice position to be in.
For 2 years, and then we'd be right back.
Yeah, well, then you could be voting potentially you'd have your own E&D fund to offset, like, all right, say you could.
well, presumably, I mean, if we did pass and Groton did not, presumably the school district would be asking the school committee to have a super town meeting, because of the fact that one of the member communities did pass it. It would be funny to see that Dunstable taking Groton to a super town
Or
meeting.
they'll go back at it.
Correct. They could also modify the budget and make them.
Or they'll just go and ask again, the
They
same
could,
amount, yeah.
So the last-
There's a ton of them.
There was that capital, they just asked again. We've
Right.
seen
Right.
we've seen this in precedent, we're just gonna ask again.
So the
Yeah.
the last 2 times that they
Right.
tried that, they asked
Right.
twice, and it failed twice, and it failed bigger the second time.
The number.
I agree.
Loses money.
Yeah, 100% agree with that, John. Like, if it's by 10 votes, I think they just ask again.
They go back.
Well, they did, and it failed the second time by a bigger margin.
They wanted to make sure.
Double down.
So
We got more
for,
people to go.
for the special town meeting, I have not put together a quote unquote balanced budget. And part of that was,
You don't have to, right?
well, we don't have to.
You don't have to.
And part of that was how we gonna apportion the deficit, and worst case scenario. If we're gonna run through some scenarios, are we gonna use our new revenues as the baseline? Are we gonna use the bottom line deficit as the baseline? Are we just gonna absorb all of it? Like, if you wanna run through those scenarios, we can. We did a little bit at one of the advisory meetings. But depending on which one we choose, it's bad to really bad. So that's why I haven't really truly put together a balanced budget. And thinking of how we want to present the budget at the special town meeting, we should really give some thought to, okay, how do we want to present the alternative to the override, which is reductions in some way. It's easy to say, this is the magnitude of the reductions, this is the range, and this is what they could mean. But even when you get to that point, the worst case scenario is scary. I don't want to alarm people, but it's really pretty scary if we have to absorb an entire amount. So that is part of the question. So I haven't really done that for the special. We don't really have to, but we can if there's a desire to say we want to apportion the overall bottom line deficit 65-30.
I feel like we almost need to in one way, just to explain to people what happens if they don't.
I agree. They need to know the alternative.
They need to know what the alternative is, because I feel like when we stressed that last time, it kind of worked because people got it.
Okay.
And it wasn't necessarily like, at least for the town side, we can explain to people what will happen if Like, for example, the library was gonna close, was one of the things,
Yeah, and it was.
right? And I feel like it worked. I feel like people got it.
Building or Sylvian's gonna be closed.
If the library closes and they can't go to another town either.
No, because we're not in the
Yeah,
custodian
right.
anymore.
Well, I mean, we lost a police officer and a per diem firefighter, and I think those gentlemen can categorically say that's had an impact of service for calls more recently and even
Yes.
farther back, like,
Especially yesterday.
so,
There've been several events.
yeah, like we're life and death are in the
Yeah.
bullseye here of reality, so.
To your point earlier, how do you sell something that's gonna sting? I think, that decision tree of here's what it looks like if we do it, here's what it looks like if we don't do it, but also acknowledging, yes, this stings, can't really do much about it this year, probably can't for the next 2 to 3 years. That's why we're going for a 3-year. And here's the other things we're trying to accomplish in the meantime, so that we're not in this position.
Yeah, what's the plan?
Right. And reiterate what we have done to.
I think that's part of the whole special town meeting presentation, going through exactly what you just said. Going through the scenarios, but also, even some of the survey results, we've talked a little bit about this, but showing people, hey, this is what the community was surveyed, these are some of the things they wanted, and this is how we're trying to reach those. And there are concrete examples of us doing things consistent with what people really want and desire in the community. But then I think it really is just, this is all about, not to get too, I don't know, but it's like, it's about what type of community do we want? That's really ultimately what it is. Like, do you want public safety to be staffed in a way that's keeps the community safe and can respond to calls when they are called out? Do you want that? That it's a basic
You do?
thing.
Yeah,
No, I do.
yeah.
Because I know I've had people come up to me and say like, well, if Dunstable doesn't show up, well, we have neighboring communities. Well, that only works for so long. And that's true, and it's not a threat, nothing like, there's mutual aid, like the Pepper ladder truck coming over, because we don't have a ladder truck, they help us out, we give them stuff. But there's a point where we start calling people daily, weekly, they will just say no, and then legit, nobody will show up.
No, but it's not, I totally agree, and it's not just that though. It's, we have mutual aid, but it extends the response by 5-10 minutes. And in those 5 and 10 minutes, guess what? Not every case, but will be, I promise, there will be cases that put somebody's life in jeopardy, period, end of story. I don't want to scare people, but that is the truth. There will be a case at some point that does that.
And it's not just a resident, it's also our department,
Total.
it's any
Totally.
individual that is at the scene is put in jeopardy.
We currently have levels of staffing that there are one person responding at times. And some of these calls are really critical in nature. They're emergency response calls. When, life-saving techniques need to be used. And there are times when there's only one person there. And that's obviously not a desirable situation for the person that is receiving, but also the staff member that's working to respond. It's just, so, really, ultimately, what kind of education system do we want? Do we like the quality of education our kids are getting? Or do we want to have class sizes balloon 30 instead of 26, lose 30 positions, et cetera, et cetera? Do we want public safety? Do we want someone in this building that can help run the day-to-day operations of the town? Like, these are the things that do we want a public health department? Do we want to provide services to our seniors? These are like basic things that most communities provide, that if an override fails and worst case scenario happens, we are gonna be really stretched to do any of those things. And that's just the reality of the situation.
And that's even with the regionalization that you.
It is, it's with all of them.
So I want to make sure that is brought up as a part of.
Right,
the
everything
savings.
we've accomplished to wean our budget down to the
Yeah.
absolute bare minimum and.
Chief?
So I hope you should raise feedback on him, like we had the fire on Wall Street. We had, pretty soon after we got there, we started we started working it, and, within a few minutes, I'd say, the Tingsboro fire chief came wheeling in, and I said, oh, good, we got some good doc, yeah, Tingsboro's gonna be showing up. And I heard he come running across the parking lot saying, both my ambulances are at the hospital, it's gonna be so that's what I said, usually you can't, all these towns around us have ambulances. If the ambulances has to go out the area to a hospital, these guys are there, and that's, I mean, you could probably, on a usual basis, look around, that 2 or 3 ambulances here are on the calls, and it won't be, coming over here. I did also get when I got here and went around to the other chiefs, I was warned right off the bat, look, we're willing to help you, but we're not gonna be coming over here and supplementing the whole fire department. The other thing that I was gonna say, when I brought it up at town meeting last year, is the state's OSHA respiratory protection standard. We're in violation, that's the 2 and 2-0. You have to have 2 personnel to go into any IDLH atmosphere. If I don't have that, I can't send these guys in legally. That's a state law. And we're in violation of that every day. If you want to see a lawsuit, if a firefighter gets killed, if we try to do something, you're gonna have some serious problems when they come along. Why this thing didn't get, we forgot living up to that standard. And they'll come to me first, and I say, well, we've been trying to get this stuff staffed, and they're gonna come looking for somewhere else.
And this is the sort of stuff we need set to.
Huge numbers of when firefighters get really injured or killed, families are coming out to the town, especially since they're very well versed on the situations that are going on. So I mean, this is another thing to try to increase our response, the level of response that we get, but also try to reduce the liability to the town.
Right.
Last question, I swear.
Go ahead.
So I'm maybe misunderstanding. I feel like I'm getting 2 different things. Kind of have Jake,
Yes.
right? That's the name, right?
Yep.
Horrible things. But I kind of feel like you're saying we need to make a point that this is not sustainable. But then I hear, what kind of school system do we want? So I'm kind of confused as to which way, you want to sell the override, and we want that, but then we can't sustain it. So I don't understand.
So it's not that we can't sustain it with our current budget, right? And as it continues to grow and as their budget continues to expand, we only, as I said, they're gonna go up by 30%, at the same time, we're gonna go up by, 7.5, right? So we're stuck, right? We can't go any further than that.
I just feel like you want to show them that they can't do this, they
Correct.
need to figure something out. But
So-
that's not kind of what I'm getting at.
I guess my voice towards the school district is that they have to do more to reduce their costs. At the same time, it's kind of speaking out of both sides, but at the same time, I believe the level of service that we're receiving is good, and it promotes all of our property values, does all the things that keep our town up and running. The problem is that when you say that and you're able to generate those funds, it does nothing to prohibit or inhibit, the increased cost from, the school district. So it becomes very challenging to sit there and say, stop spending, and then on the back end, somebody else keeps, but they don't recognize it, and if you're not sitting in this room, if you're not going through all the rest of it, they don't understand that this isn't just 1 year, like, okay, we got that, and now it's over the next 3 years, we're gonna be back here sitting again, and that's not something that I want, to bring up or to be a part of what's going on, because people say, well, this doesn't make sense, why am I gonna vote for it now? Increase my tax over the next 3 years by $1,700, and then in 3 years, you're gonna be back saying, now I need $2,500 over the next 3 years. And it's gonna continue to roll, forward, and that's what we're trying to say is that to the school district is, you need to find a way. And we do on our side, the municipal side is to find ways to be able to generate more revenue, but on their side, they have to try to find ways to reduce cost. And that may be, in smarter buildings, but it doesn't sound like that's a good idea. It may be in finding other ways to, it's volunteer people working at the school offices, if it's whatever it is, finding ways to reduce cost on some end. Maybe it is, joking around, but golden parachutes for these teachers that cost $150,000 a year, that so we can bring in somebody out of school that is a level 2 grade teacher that's only $70,000 a year, right? It's one of those things we have to try to figure out ways and be creative to be able to reduce costs. And although I believe they're trying, it just, when you look at the numbers, it just doesn't come up. I know Jason's trying, because I can see a negative cost impact on what our town is costing us on an annual basis. So yeah, it is kind of talking out of both sides because we do need it, but at the same time, we have to, when we have the opportunity, and that's why I say is we have that, sort of the agreement to move forward as a community where we're meeting as multiple branches of each government sitting together and saying, how do we best proceed forward with this? I think that's where I'm saying that I want to play nice with the first round. And then on the second round is saying, no, we want to have public safety. We want to have people taken care of, and we're willing to fund the school, but it has to be at a reasonable rate. And, it's finding that balance. And I think we've started off something that's positive. I'd like to see it continue. And I think that first bite of the apple shows that positivity, shows that communal relationship as we're working forward together. But if it doesn't work, we should at least protect our house, right? We should be able to have a response. We should be able to have, I can only imagine what it'd be like to go in an emergency call and be by myself, right? Or try to go to a burning building and stand outside and be like, I can't do anything. I'm sorry, right? That would have to be the worst feeling in the world, right? And we ought to be able to protect our citizens more and be able to provide that level of service. And I think that second chance, should the first one not pass, the second chance, we need to make sure that we can provide our citizens with that public safety. I think we've seen that in our polling results, at least the original ones that we saw, that public safety is that level of importance to our community. And I think we need to promote that on that second bite at the apple. The first bite is, hey, we're all playing in the field. We're all doing everything great together. Everything's going well. The second one is make sure that our citizens are taken care of.
But even having said that, like we met, 3 or 4 times?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a working group of all 3 of us. And we went at it. I mean, this was not like we're hand in hand and we're singing Kumbaya and all that. Like he was there. I was, and Jake was.
These were not public meetings.
They weren't public meetings, but we
went
at it and had real difficult conversations and made difficult points around these budgets. So we're trying to work together, but that's not to say we weren't aggressively kind of asking questions and trying to get answers to some of this. All I was trying to say is this budget, whether we like it or not, whatever budget we're presenting is a value statement. That's what it is, whether we like it or not. What do we want? What do we want in our community? That's the decision. And these decisions are made every year based on the budget we pass. That's all I'm saying. So the community made decisions this fiscal year that we're now following. Luckily, we got some supplemental funding for one of the decisions. But next year, it's the same thing. It's a community assessment of the needs and what type of community they want to live in. And these decisions, all of which we're talking about now, are made when making the budget. So that's kind of the point I was trying to make. But
my only other argument with that is that, we've been talking about this for 3 months now. We knew this was coming. Originally, they said to a 16% increase or something like that. And I can tell you 100% against it. And as of 2 weeks ago, I was still against an override for the schools. I'm not now because I feel like they've come around a little bit. But my issue really is with the school committee because I don't feel like they've heard us. I don't feel like they've listened. And I don't think they were very receptive when we went and visited them and met with them. And again, that's why I go back to my argument about leaving this entire thing on their doorstep. They said either pay up, they basically said pay up or shut up.
Well, it comes across as if they want to keep their level of service, yet put the towns in a position where we have to reduce our service, and that's just not.
And I don't want to.
It's not fair. We want to have a fully staffed police department. We want to have a fully staffed fire department. That's what he's thinking, asking, what is it you want in your town? We want to have a good school. We want them to lower their spending, but they're never going to get to 2.5%, 3%, 4%. Never. They're bound by certain fixed costs that they don't have any control over either. I think there's some stuff in the budget that they do, but at the end of the day, if you want to have the good school that is attracting people, you have to pay for it, and you have to pass the override in order for that to happen. So I understand people have the choice. Voting against it doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't. It creates a larger problem. I completely get it. I don't have children in the school system either. I don't have children, period. I don't have town water, of all these other things that, you know, a handful of people have, but that's what makes it a town. It's a community. You've got to pay you to make it all work, you know,
I
because.
get that, but if the parents aren't willing to put their children schooling, why should I? Why should I say yes to an
Because,
they're not?
well, because it doesn't just impact the school, it impacts the fire department, it impacts the police department, it impacts the town services, it impacts how we can operate in the town. If it doesn't go, there's a litany of positions that are gonna be lost. So,
And your property value.
Yeah, I mean, in theory,
Yeah.
like, if your schools
Yeah.
go down, your property values go down, and then your tax revenue inherently will go down.
Which makes your schools worse. Again.
Which makes your schools work, like, it's, so it's like.
it's a spiral.
It's a box.
Schools aren't going anywhere. I don't care what my home value is. I don't care.
True.
Yeah, but more often than not, most people associate their home as their number one asset that they're gonna cash in on at some point in life.
Well, it could also be for equity during life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joan, do you have a question?
You have people that are coming here, and I've seen it on Facebook, multiple comments, well, my kid graduated, I'm out, peace out. And I'm stuck.
Oh, there are a lot of people that do that. And then that opens that house out for another family to come in with their children, and they go
More
through the
kids.
system. And I'd rather see that happen than a new house be built.
Again, I think
That adds 3 new more children.
And that's what. and-
Joni, do you have, I'm sorry, Joni, do you have a question? We're gonna wrap up here. It's coming up on 3.5
You
hours.
mentioned school districts that are also, in a meeting override. I think it would be interesting to look, to see, with these different school districts that, are needing an override, if they're, you know, like, if they're like Groton Dunstable that gets everything they want all the time, or whether they ever get, you know, if they're ever said no to.
Be interesting to see what the percentage of the override is based upon the additional school increases. but
Okay, I
That just
think
be
we're
like-
gonna call this a wrap. at this
I'm
point,
done.
okay? You gonna have stuff? Motion to adjourn? Second?
So move.
Oh, we got some business.
We're good, yeah.
We're done.
We've got to approve some meeting minutes, because if we don't get something posted soon, then we get in trouble.
That's true. Yeah, that's a good practice. So get those meeting minutes up.
Get those meetings up.
So I would, I guess from our board, I would
Do you
entertain a
remember the
motion
meetings they
to
told us that
approve the meeting
the-
minutes as submitted
the-
for December 6th
kindergarten
and January
We're
3rd.
like one of the only towns that
We're like one of 3 that didn't do it.
Motion been made.
all these towns, including Westford, which we were told
All those in favor?
is offers free kindergarten, still charges.
Yea or nay on the meeting minutes? Yea or nay on the meeting minutes?
No, it's 18.
There were
Are there to be meeting minutes on their
Well,
agenda?
they're all listed there. Right. But what the argument was, it was free. And it's not, these towns still charge. We have the highest by
Can
far.
you shut that
Oh, yeah,
off,
we got
Carol? Can you shut that off?
Yea or nay on the meeting minutes?
Oh, yeah.
I knew Al, I could do that.
All those are in favor, so we'll pass those, and those are
Cut the
approved to be
wires.
submitted to the.
Oh, Sue gets mad.
Oh, and, we do have the reserve fund transfer that we discussed at the last, meeting, but we weren't able to vote because we did not have